Okay, so today's webinar is probably one of the more important ones you could ever watch. To talk to you just real briefly, the fact that you're watching this is sort of the whole point of what a lot of I'm going to be talking about today. But this particular webinar is actually motivational in nature. I'm going to talk to you about what you need to do to constantly be improving in your job, what the most successful attorneys do to constantly be improving, why wherever you are right now in your career, you don't need to be, but how you can change and grow. Things that I've seen attorneys do in terms of how they've managed their careers and what the kind of things that they've exposed themselves to in order to be more successful. Just to start off immediately and kind of go into this, what I'm going to talk about you today is something that the most successful attorneys do compared to those that don't. And it doesn't matter where you went to law school. It doesn't matter what kind of firm you're currently in. If you understand the advice and stories that I'm going to tell you today, you're going to become much, much more successful in your job search and in your career. And a couple of other points. What I'm going to talk to you about today is also why people don't succeed and reach their full potential. And most people, I would say the majority of attorneys, don't succeed and reach their full potential. A lot of what I talk about in my webinars is related to a lot of people withdrawing consciously, and it often being a good decision for them, working in smaller markets, working in easier practice areas, and doing things kind of along those lines that may not expose them to as much criticism and as much feedback as people would get in different types of environments. So finally, a couple other points I want to make. When people get very, very successful as attorneys in the largest firms, they're often exposed to an incredible number of things that are sort of bringing out their weaknesses and making them perform at certain levels, and all these different things that people are looked at. So they're never actually ever able to be secure and feel good about that a lot of times in their career. So an example here I'm just going to share real briefly is these are just some things that partners can be evaluated on, like the amount of business they get, how many people pay, their hours, client development, profitability, cross-selling, different types of teamwork, marketing, growth of their business, just all these different things, if they get fee discounts or not, and just so many different ways that partners are evaluated. And so they're never actually in a position where they completely feel secure. There's just all these different things that people are constantly evaluating them in different firms. So these are just things for you to consider. They're not necessarily, something that I'll go into a lot of detail today. But this webinar is going to be about what kind of keeps people from succeeding and what the most successful attorneys do that makes them successful. So, most of the people that I meet, people that are, having issues are, often, have certain weaknesses limiting the potential. And it matters a lot more than intelligence. And it's often not lack of skill. It's often not a lack of pedigree. Most people, even some of the hardest working people, are held back by this. And this flaw will undermine their progress. It will often, if they don't have enough confidence, will hurt them, and it will prevent them from reaching the levels of success that they're capable of. And I would just say at the outset, regardless of your background, what type of school you went to, where what's happened to you up until this point in your career, if you understand what I'm going to talk about, you'll be able to radically improve. And this particular weakness that I'm going to talk about is something that hides behind everything. It's often things that you do that you believe are going to help you, succeed, self-preserve your career. And once you realize how to overcome this, you're going to be much, much more successful. And it's what the most successful attorneys do in every practice area, in every geographic area, that separates those who are just kind of, going along with their careers and not reaching their full potential compared to those that do. So I'm going to show you what that weakness is and how it shapes every decision a lot of people make about their careers, what you can do to improve and to take what I'm talking about and do much better in your career, and then free yourself, have the career and life that that you have always wanted, and to think about the most success and the most respect and all these sorts of things, the most money, that are important to a lot of attorneys. So I'll talk to you to start a little bit about criticism and how that works, and how that can change the quality of attorney you become, and a lot of the importance of learning from criticism earlier in your career. So the summer, not after graduating from law school, but the first summer after after my first year of law school, I worked in the Justice Department in this honors program in Washington, D.C. And I'd come out of my first year of law school. I'd done a great second semester. I thought very highly of myself, and I believed that because I'd done well in school and I was hired into this very special program, there must be something very special about me, and I obviously was a good attorney. This particular department, they couldn't believe how well qualified a lot of the people were, and most of the people were from, like, Ivy League law schools. And my first assignment, I turned in to a guy that was a graduate of Yale Law School, and he sat down with me and he literally took apart almost every sentence in this memo that I'd written for him, and told me what needed to be improved, what I'd done wrong. He showed me where it was wordy. Citations were, improper. There were grammatical areas, conclusions and things that I reached that were wrong. And he understood what I was writing about very well. And he had so many insights into it that I missed, that I was just completely, demoralized. And I just, mumbled to him that it was a draft. I got defensive. I claimed to him that I was aware of all this and all the issues that he pointed out. And it was an incredible shock to my confidence. I couldn't believe that I could write something and literally there were problems with every single line of it. And I felt like I was being, my ego was kind of being assaulted. And it was difficult for me to accept this. It was a complete blow to my confidence. And so throughout the entire summer, I had worked for other attorneys and as my work became more and more torn apart, it improved. It became more thorough. I started researching things more carefully. I would work very late at night there to make sure that things were, that I was doing the best job I could, trying to do more research and get better and better. Eventually, I got to the point where I started looking forward to this criticism. Like, I would looked at it as a game where, I had to basically find all the errors, make sure everything was cited properly, and then the goal became to make the work so strong that no one could find fault with it. And I exposed myself to people, that were very good and much better than I was. So I didn't get to the point of, by any stretch of imagination, being, very good at this. I mean, I was getting better, but I started making a lot fewer errors, and the more criticism I got, the better I got. And I would surround myself with better and better attorneys who would also criticize my work. And I realized that, there was a kind of a mindset there of very good attorneys of just questioning everything and continually getting better and better. And instead of just, taking the feedback or saying this isn't the place I wanted to work, or getting depressed and, whatever, I started, doing that. Now, I haven't done this in a while, which is a problem, but what I used to do, and I haven't done in at least a year, is I would have coaches that I would meet with at least twice a week. And these coaches would help hold me accountable for goals. that I would set with them. They would keep me on track with those goals. They would find problems in the things that I was doing. And that too is demoralizing, because if someone's telling you 5 or 10 things you're doing wrong each week, it makes you accountable. And so instead of just kind of coasting and thinking you're doing everything correctly, people are constantly telling you what you're doing wrong. And it's not fun. I mean, I'm like the CEO and owner of BCG and other companies, and I do not like having people blow holes in my confidence each week and telling me I'm not doing a good job. But if I don't do that, then companies don't do well. And it's the same thing with companies. Companies are constantly, good companies are constantly evaluating the people there. They're constantly questioning what they do. They're bringing good people in and putting bad people out. They're making sure everyone there's accountable. And this is just how it works in successful companies and successful law firms. And you need people that are going to tell you the truth, that are going to tell you what you're doing wrong. And the second someone stops telling you what you're doing wrong, you're usually pretty close to being out the door. Because like I was showing you at the beginning of this, partners are evaluated by, maybe 15, 20, 30 different things at law firms in terms of their performance. And people actually meet with very successful partners in the largest law firms, and they criticize what they're doing, and people improve in response to that. So these are all things that are part of the legal profession. They're part of really good businesses. And the more criticism you expose yourself to, and the more you allow yourself to be around people that are telling you you could do better, that's actually very positive. That's not a negative thing, because you're constantly improving and getting better and better. And people that go into jobs where they're not getting that type of criticism, and they're not being held accountable, and they're not, people aren't telling them what they could do to improve and what they're doing wrong, don't do well. They have careers that just kind of stay at one place. I've seen people start out at smaller law firms and figure out what they're doing wrong, and then realize they're in a position where they're doing just as well as second-year associates, as even partners, like they're seeing the same sort of things, and they try to put themselves in more and more competitive environments. Other people will start out in large law firms and not like all the criticism and their work being questioned and being held to all these very high standards, and will try to escape that and go to places where they're not being criticized. So the entire legal profession revolves around people that are able to expose themselves to much criticism and as many challenges as possible. And you do not have to be part of that. You can certainly find firms where that's not going to happen. You can find roles in companies and things where that might not happen. You can find all sorts of positions where people aren't going to hold you accountable. And if you are not accountable, then your career is going to suffer. The best attorneys in the country are able to surround themselves with people that are constantly evaluating their performance and making them accountable. Even a litigator with their own practice, I mean, they still have to go in front of courts and be accountable, and they still have to be accountable to their clients. And so everything is about accountability. And the more accountable you are, and the more you're able to take criticism and grow from it, the better off you're going to do. So again, the people who are the best at anything are constantly questioning the quality of the work. They're always improving. They're always fully open to criticism, and they understand that this feedback ultimately makes them stronger. So when I was at my first law firm, Quinn Emanuel, which was just, I mean, they were like, getting incredible results in most of their cases. They were doing a very good job. They had all sorts of levels of people that would question work. So they had one of the name partners is Quinn Emanuel, Urquhart, Oliver, and Hedges. Emanuel was sort of a person that was very, very good at writing. And so he would go and take apart the work of partners, of associates. He would review it, tell them what they were doing wrong, and constantly be giving very, very high level feedback. So if you were working on something as an associate, it might go to a senior associate to review. It might go to a partner to review. And then that partner's work would be reviewed maybe by Emanuel. And then they even had other levels of people, like these. There was one guy that was a graduate of Yale Law School that was incredibly insightful with case theories and all sorts of things that other people wouldn't see. And he would criticize the work. So everything that was going on of that firm was evaluated, any important piece of work, by very, very exacting people that would apply theory. They would apply writing skills. They would apply all these sorts of things to their work. And that's just one level of being evaluated. I mean, there's certainly other levels, but just the written work was evaluated. And so a lot of people that don't reach their full potential, whether it's firms or attorneys, they don't put themselves in a position where they're getting a lot of feedback and constantly improving. And so instead of listening to the criticism, thinking about what they could do wrong, and admitting their weaknesses, they avoid it, and they see it as assault on their ego and their self-image, and it really prevents them from growing. I had this incredible girl that I was working with not too long ago. She was in a, she'd been at a very demanding law firm and getting very, very good reviews. And finally, she said, I mean, this woman's resume was just outstanding for someone her age. I mean, when she was in a firm, she was working as many hours as she could. I mean, working 6 days a week. She'd go to church, I think, on Sundays, but just constantly working. And they would give her these good reviews. And she said, well, thank you, but I mean, what can I do to improve? And finally, someone said to her, and she was actually in a more of a transactional practice area. Finally, someone said to her, well, you could work on improving your writing skills. So she thought about, how can I possibly work on my writing skills? I need someone to give me constant feedback on my writing skills. So she literally went and took a federal clerkship because she would get to work with a judge to give her feedback on her writing for a year. And I thought that was absolutely amazing. And she had just the most incredible resume, all these associations she was members, these papers she'd written on her spare time. I mean, just presentations, just very, very good resume. But she wanted to constantly expose herself to criticism to be the absolute best attorney she could be. And she had, again, if I were to look at 1,000 resumes of attorneys, I mean, she would have been like the top 1 to 5 in terms of resumes I might look at on a weekly basis. So the most common traits of the most educated and the most successful people is this ability to expose themselves to criticism, to constantly figure out ways that they can improve things, to be aware of their weaknesses and to address those weaknesses, and to see feedback as part of growth and mastery. I mean, I have like a practice where I coach partners on different things. And basically, because what I do and what I'm doing now is I'm probably pointing out your weaknesses or things, and I'm trying to make you aware of things. So that's a skill I have. It doesn't mean that I'm a perfect coach, but I'm able to look at people. I'm able to identify their weaknesses and tell them what they need to improve. I can do that with any resume of an attorney. I can do that with any resume of any attorney I talk to. I just see it. And so people that work with me as candidates are exposed to their weaknesses when they go into interviews. I prep every one of my candidates for interviews, and then I bring out their weaknesses and I show them what they're doing wrong. And everybody's doing stuff wrong. And so if you take feedback, you can dramatically improve. Getting feedback is hugely important. If I have a candidate that I'm preparing for an interview, the average person that goes into a job interview has about maybe a 10 to 20% chance of getting the job. If I talk to someone and they take feedback I'm giving them, then they typically will have about an 80% chance, because I'm able to show all these weaknesses in ways that law firms are going to evaluate them when they go in, so they can do much better than other people interviewing, and law firms actually want to hire them. So often, the people that are the least educated, people that have the lowest paying jobs, that are not the least successful, are put themselves in jobs and positions where their work's not criticized. They avoid that scrutiny because it threatens their sense of competence, and this resistance keeps them from growing and progressing. If you think about back to even when you were in high school, there are people that drop out, and people drop out usually because they're getting bad grades and they're not getting positive feedback. So instead of picking it up and doing the best they can and studying all the time and making sure that they do, whatever they can to improve, they drop out. Same thing when people drop out of college. Same thing when people give up when they're trying to major in pre-med. Same thing when people give up, because they haven't gotten the feedback they want. Instead of using criticism as like rocket fuel, which means that they take the criticism and they get stronger in response to it. Those people won't take the criticism, and they'll withdraw, or they'll put themselves in situations where they're not getting negative feedback and they're not able to improve. They want to avoid it. And so they withdraw or they drop out. And this is what a lot of people do. People do this at all levels of the legal profession. They put themselves in easier positions, or they quit large firms and do something else. It's very common for people to go to large law firms, and after 1 year or so, they have had their work aggressively criticized, and they quit and they try to do something else. Or they try to go into firms where they're not going to have the stuff scrutinized. And this, by the way, is very common among Ivy League law school graduates. I see them almost every day, people that are leaving. I see people that are in firms where they've been asked to leave because their work's criticized. I see people that are in firms where they're leaving because they don't like the negative feedback. And this is what people do. They withdraw, and they stop fighting, and they put themselves in positions where they're not going to be criticized and where they're not constantly to grow. Sometimes people will isolate themselves in different types of jobs, like I talked about. They'll get into relationships where they're not growing. Sometimes people will relocate to smaller geographic areas because they think it's going to be easier, which it often is, or smaller firms, and they will go into environments that are going to protect their egos, where they feel good about themselves, rather than environments that are going to constantly challenge them and make them become better and better. And regardless of who you are, you can always get into environments that are going to challenge you more. Regardless of who you are, you can always find coaches and other people that will challenge you and make you grow. But self-protection, ultimately, when you try to isolate yourself from criticism, it's going to limit your personal and professional growth. It doesn't matter, by the way, who you are. If it doesn't matter what practice area you're in, you can always be challenged to do better and better. So I'll talk to you a little bit about legal recruiting, because I've seen this play out so many times with people that I hired, and it's kind of going to show you a lesson of how that works. So when people join BCG as recruiters, most of the time, sometimes they're very experienced recruiters where that's probably not appropriate all the time because they have good ways of recruiting. But typically I'll hire people that are new, and I'll do that because I want them to learn how we do things and not always bring the habits and things that they've done at previous firms. So there's always two types of people. The people that listen, want to learn, are welcome to coaching and criticism. They know that if they take that, they're going to probably be good, which I tell them right at the beginning. But if they don't, they won't. And then there are those that will start and think they know everything. They know who's marketable. They know all these different things, and they'll resist coaching. And often it's because they're trying to protect their egos. Sometimes they may have left law firms to do this because they want to be in an environment that they feel is easier and won't challenge them. But what's interesting about the people that have been the best at this company, and the difference between the best could be, making $100,000 a year, to be making $500,000 a year. And the people that welcome that criticism are always improving. They never rest on their laurels, and they're constantly aiming to get better and better and take feedback. And this is the same thing with people in any profession. The best athletes and the best professionals in any profession are always going to be exposing themselves to get coaching and to get feedback. And they're going to surround themselves. They're going to try to consciously put themselves in environments that are going to push them even harder. And they want to continually push harder. Even the best athletes or the best people in any profession are always going to try to make sure that they're constantly improving. And so legal placement, like what I do, there's an incredible amount to learn. It takes years, and I learn new things every day. And it means the ability to constantly, not get into a certain way of doing things, and to constantly adjust your behavior and approach as you're getting feedback from not just me, or getting feedback from other recruiters and getting feedback from the market. And so I, learned very early that the people that do the best, and doing the best is there's a huge difference. Those people are always teachable. They never assume they know everything. They constantly ask questions. they listen and then they listen again and again, and they're open to feedback. So, for example, I meet with recruiters that work here. We have meetings when they start once a week, or I'm sorry, once a day. Then after they've been here for a while, we're meeting with them, multiple times a week. And there are people that sit there and they constantly listen to that and they get better and better. And those are the people that do well. So I've noticed just over 25 years that if somebody is open to criticism and taking that guidance, they'll often go out of their way to schedule calls with me and things. These are the people that always do the best, and they grow. They fully accept criticism, and they're constantly improving. And people that don't succeed almost all the time, or they fail, are people that don't accept that criticism. So you may do very well, for example, in recruiting, and when the economy is very good, but then when it changes, then those same people don't do well, and they're tested by their skill, their growth, and their grit and ability to do things in a different way, and they don't succeed. So people, like in good economies, recruiters will, and this is very common in the industry, when the economy is good, a lot of people get in the industry and succeed, and then they get a lot of confidence, and they think that there's something very, very special about them. And but really, what's happening in those kind of markets is the market's doing well. And so when the economy weakens, very, very few people often stay with it. So I remember in 2008 and that kind of time when the economy got very, very bad. Now we had maybe 25 recruiters, and probably 15 of them were people that were just coasting on the economy and had never taken the time to like learn and become very, very effective. And then there were like 10 that ended up staying. So 15 literally left because nothing was happening for them. But the 10 that stayed kept doing well. They were the same people that were constantly trying to learn. And when the economy changed, they just had all these tools and things that made them do better and continue to do well, often just as well as they were doing in a good economy. So the ones that failed were always people that thought they knew everything and that were not open to criticism. And they avoided this level of accountability. They often would not show up to meetings. They often would not show up to meetings with me or other recruiters. And they didn't like having their work and what they were doing critiqued. And they avoided anything kind of that made them take responsibility and improve, because their ego, they wanted to protect the egos. They wanted to pretend like they knew everything. They believed that that training and things were not, didn't apply to them. And those people ended up failing, which is interesting to me because, but I would say that if I look back on, and I'm talking about, right now, 17 years ago, that the 10 or so people that had been open to criticism are still in the profession and doing well. I mean, they're not necessarily here, but they're still doing well. There's actually a couple of them that are still here. And these are people that every week get on calls with me and have the work that they're doing criticized. And the people that aren't doing that, didn't do that, are the ones that do. That did. And it was interesting to me that a lot of the the people that did fail, and this is something that is important to mention, I guess. They were the ones that often had the less rigorous or prestigious work histories, and I think that a lot of times maybe the resistance to feedback and not being necessarily accountable is something that hurt them. And so, again, the major difference between those who succeeded and those that didn't is criticism, being able to be accountable, wanting to constantly grow, listening to different aspects of what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong, and constantly improving it. And then the ones that fail are people that rejected that or avoided that, and stayed in the same pattern. So for you, I mean, it's very smart, for example, being on a webinar like this, because you're constantly learning. People that come on these every week do very, very well in their careers, because they're basically getting feedback on how to be better and what they're probably doing wrong. And so you need to, whatever you do, if you want to grow, You need to be in environments where people are critiquing your work, and where there's always a higher level to reach, and where your weaknesses are always being challenged instead of avoided, and where you're never quite as comfortable as you would like to be. You're always a little bit uncomfortable because you know there's things you could be doing better, and where there are people in your organization that are doing better and that you can learn from, and where you're not avoiding growth, and where you constantly know that you have to do better, whether it's an associate trying to generate business, or build more hours, or getting more difficult work, where there's going to be a lot higher accountability. Anytime you do that, you're growing. And when I talk to attorneys, a lot of times, a good portion of the time, they're trying to be in environments where they're getting less criticism, where it's easier for them. And then those attorneys will kind of stay at a certain level of, their performance will be a certain thing, and it's never going to improve the way it could. So you need to, get out of your comfort zone. You need to be in environments that challenge you. You need to be in environments where you're constantly aware of what you could do better and what you're not doing well. And this is exactly what the most successful attorneys do. They try to put themselves in demanding environments, and they constantly get better and better. And this is one of the keys, to being very, very good. When you go to large law firms, for example, the quality of work, the hours, the all this sort of stuff is going to be evaluated much more aggressively than it would be in smaller markets and smaller firms often. So what law firms want, and what the best law firms do, is what they're willing to tolerate and what's acceptable. And the top law firms do not accept any form of mediocrity most of the time, or complacency. They have all these metrics they're using: your ability to get work, your ability to do good work, your hours, your even your how well you're doing socially with people. Very, very high standards. And then the partners have high standards in terms of the size clients they're able to have, and the fact that they have clients. And so everyone is constantly improving and taking feedback. And one of the things that I think is very, very interesting is, in the largest law firms, the partners there are literally, I would say, often exposed to more evaluations and ways to improve, and other things like I showed you earlier, than even associates. And so there's like this constant drive to improve. And if you're in the best law firms, if you ignore criticism about your work, if you ignore criticism, if you sometimes people even criticize for not seeming gung-ho enough, and so people in those environments are constantly trying to improve. And law firms, the largest law firms, will always be pushing people out that haven't improved to the level that they want. If you become senior and you don't have any business, you'll be pushed out. If you're an associate and you don't have enough hours, you'll be pushed out. If you're an associate and people don't like the quality of your work, then the other partners won't give you work. And so everybody has to be open to self-improvement and challenge. And that's one of the reasons that people often dislike large law firms, but it's also one of the reasons that people go to large law firms, because they want to become the best attorneys they can. They will often go to the largest cities just so they can, because those environments are often much more competitive. New York is probably a lot, in general, more competitive than Chicago. And, Chicago is more competitive than Minneapolis. I mean, people push themselves into cities and environments and firms where they're going to be exposed to criticism. The best law firms, will often, obviously hire people with the best academic background. They don't always do that, but they want people that are very, very driven. So if you get into a really good law school, that shows usually that you're very driven. If you do very well there, that shows that you're very driven. It shows that you're just constantly pushing yourself to get as much as yourself out as you can. You're probably very good at taking feedback and not making mistakes again. And it just shows your ability to be challenged. And sometimes, a lot of times, most people will go into weaker law firms. I mean, the majority of law firms 95% are not, large law firms in the country. They will often tolerate much lower standards of your education, your work ethic, and your performance. And then there'll be kind of mediocrity throughout the entire firm. I mean, it gets to the point where, I mean, there are firms like insurance defense firms and some other types of firms where, I mean, I can't even believe what's tolerable there. I mean, people will write, briefs where the paragraphs are just cut in half, and I mean, it's tons of typos and things, and that's okay. But if you're in an environment like that, you're not going to be improving, and you want to put yourself in environments if you're interested in growing and being the best you can, where mediocrity is not tolerated, where the people, the large law firms want someone with a good education most of the time, coming from a peer firm, where the work quality is a certain level, and where there's where they know you have to be committed. What's a lot of times people will do things like they'll go in house and then they'll wonder, like, why can't I get a job after going in house in another law firm? And the reason is because law firms know, first of all, it's a different practice setting. But if you go in-house, law firms know that have no understanding of the quality of work that's required, the hours that are required, the feedback that you're getting. In-house legal departments are all over the map. There's no way to evaluate them. But if you're coming from a firm where they know the quality of work is very high, and where there's certain expectations, they will hire you, as opposed to if you're coming in-house. And so people, want to hire people that have exposed themselves, and are trying to work at the highest levels where they're more and more accountable. And in the best legal environments, all this stuff is non-negotiable. I mean, you have to be practicing the highest level, and you're always going to have your, feedback. There's always going to be, systems in place where if you're not doing good enough work, you're never going to stay there. And so people like that, whether it's your hours or the quality of work you're doing, or all sorts of other things, or your inability to improve with feedback, you're going to get reviewed, and you might not even get reviewed. You'll just get expelled like a virus. And so every level of these firms is, monitoring and enforcing very high standards, which won't exist many times in smaller middle market firms that different practice areas, things that places don't have that. So the best firms will have very high quality standards that you need to meet. And everybody is held accountable for very, very high level performance. Again, partners are expected to have a certain amount of business. They're evaluated based on all these different factors. They're expected to grow their books, to keep the hourly rate of their clients continually increasing. And so everybody's held accountable, and there's no room for underperformance. Even the best personal injury firms will often, even if just say you're doing accidents, auto accidents, you're a personal injury firm and you're an associate, you might have 100 files or 200 files, and you're going to be evaluated based on the number of cases you settle, how much they're settled for, the average settlement, all these different factors. And even the best personal injury firms that you may think are not doing important work, the associates there are going to be evaluated, and they get paid and bonuses and things based on how well they do with the cases that they have. So those firms, even the best ones, I mean, I've evaluated a couple of them recently, the people are constantly pushed to improve. And if you're underperforming, then they push them out. So you might be in a personal injury firm. There's one that I know of where I think they have like 30 associates, and they advertise on television and online and things, and bring cases in, but everybody is evaluated based on things. Even in our company, we evaluate people based on the number of people that they call that are in our database to try to get them to look at different positions. And so there's just, there's no room for underperformance, and people are evaluated according to their peers. The law firms essentially are selling the quality of their people, and the quality of the people, it revolves around their commitment, their history of achievement, all these sorts of things, and then the quality of work that they do for their clients. And so if law firms don't have people like that, the best ones, then they have nothing to offer. That's why the best law firms can charge the highest hourly rates, and why they can pay the associates the most money, is because the quality of work that they do for their clients is much higher usually than firms that aren't. And oftentimes I see that law firms will take chances on candidates who may not have the best qualifications. They may have been at lower ranked schools in the middle of their class, and often what happens is these attorneys, will have brought standards, work ethics, and things that they may have had and developed, and they'll bring those to these good firms, and they'll start getting very, very harsh feedback, and they won't improve, and they'll just kind of get kicked out. And there's things that I don't like to talk about, but your ability to expose yourself to often the best law schools as you're competing with other people that are going to be better at writing exams than you, and often more motivated than you. And you may not elevate your performance. Sometimes people will take the LSAT and they won't spend enough time studying for it, and that's a sign of commitment. So a lot of people, if they get into these really good environments, the highest performing those sorts of firms will realize their weaknesses very, very quickly, and they'll get rid of them. I mean, it's just what happens. So if you get into an environment where you have bad, not good work habits and things, and you don't push yourself very, very hard to improve quickly, then you will lose your job. And this is what happens to every class of associates that comes into major law firms. Most of the time, the people that are pushed out, they will be not doing the best quality work. They won't be improving. Other people won't give them work, and that's one of the main reasons. And then those people will start looking for jobs, and that happens quite a bit. And so, but again, if you come out of a less demanding background and you try to work in better firms, you may be in a situation where you haven't seen the value of working very, very hard and being accountable. And then when you get into environments where your work is suddenly aggressively criticized, you may not take that criticism, whereas the people that are going places in the legal profession will take that criticism, and then they will, it won't be an assault to their ego. They'll realize that they need to do better and better, and they will overcome that. And again, the people that do the best are constantly pushing themselves to do better and better. The people that do the best, one of the things that law firms love to see, by the way, is they love to see people that may have started out at a smaller firm, and then they move to a bigger firm, and then they want to move to an even bigger firm. And when they're constantly moving up, that's a very good sign. And they will say things like, I want to work on larger clients or more important work. And so they're pushing themselves to be in the most demanding environments possible. And that's very, very attractive to firms. And when I look at the resumes that I work on, and the attorneys that I work on that have that when they're going out and interviewing, they are much, much more likely to get jobs often than people coming from similar top firms. And so, but again, your ability often to get into the best law schools early in your career is going to reflect, a lot of commitment. When it's interesting, when you look at people, I don't know why I keep talking about Yale Law School today, but law schools like Yale, the University of Chicago, and Stanford, when they look at someone's transcript, so they'll have all these people that have perfect grade points and very, very high LSATs, and so based on that, they're kind of indistinguishable. If you're applying to a school like Harvard, University of Michigan, other top schools, they'll typically just look at your grades and your LSAT scores and select the people that are the highest for their class. That's pretty much how they work. I mean, there's some exceptions to that to the extent, but for the most part, that's what they're going to evaluate you on. Most top law schools, Duke, places like that. But if you try to go to a school like Yale or Stanford or the University of Chicago, those schools, they will look at your transcript, and they will look at the classes you took and how challenging they are. And so when I see the resumes of people from Yale Law School that go there, I mean, they're incredible. I mean, they might have taken 3 different languages and done these very, very difficult economics and math classes in addition to major in the classics. I mean, the resumes are just like, you look at them and you're like, my God, this person has exposed themselves to the most challenge possible. So it's not just a question of people that are able to get good grades and LSAT scores. The issue is why those people get into the best schools is because of what they've exposed themselves to in terms of the challenge of the things that they've done. And that's what's evaluated. And that's why those people go to get into those schools. And it's also why, presidents and people like that come out, because not only are they intellectually gifted and challenging, but they challenge themselves socially and things to rise. And so, again, Yale would probably be the top one that does that. But, University of Chicago and Stanford are very, very good at that. They show people with a lot of drive and willingness to push themselves, and that's why people get into the best law schools. Doesn't mean they're going to be the best attorneys, but that's often one of the things that I notice when I review transcripts and so forth. And again, like Harvard, Michigan, NYU, typically are just going to be mainly looking for your grades and LSAT scores. You could major in fashion and get a perfect LSAT score and get into one of these schools. And so it's not necessarily the challenge that the person's exposed them to, but at the very, very highest levels of schools, they're looking for a lot more. And so that's who gets into places like Yale. And those people, have a history of putting themselves in the most demanding environments and doing the best there. And this is just a mindset of people that do the best. And the people that do the best are always challenging themselves. And it works that way in law schools. It works that way when you get into firms. It works that way in the legal profession. And clients want to hire the people too that are the best. And so if you get into the toughest environments you can, and you challenge yourself, and you're constantly trying to get better, and you're seeking to put yourself in environments with higher and higher standards, and not settling for something, then you're going to do the best. The best attorneys in any practice area, whether it's trust and estates or litigation or whatever it is, they're constantly challenging themselves. So I know people that have started off in personal injury, and they start doing small cases, and then they're like, this isn't enough for me. They want to work on bigger and bigger cases, and so because they're constantly trying to grow in that profession, and at the highest levels, I mean, they can make hundreds of millions of dollars doing it, but they're constantly trying to get better and better, and they're not settling for something. And so big thing I would also like stress to everyone, and I think this is actually a very important point, is when people are looking for jobs, they also need to leave their egos at the door, and it really has a lot to do with how you search for a job. So a lot of times when I'm working with attorneys, they will consciously apply to only a few firms where they feel like they're less likely to get rejected. And because of that, they don't expose themselves to the full market, when exposing themselves to the full market would mean a lot of rejection. I mean, a ton of rejection. So the average attorney, if you are looking for a job and you apply to 100 places, I mean, almost all those places are going to reject you. It's not because there's anything wrong with you personally. It's because typically they may not have the work, or they have someone better in mind. And so if you're looking for a job, you have to not have an ego, and you have to expose yourself to criticism and not getting positions and not getting interviewed, because everybody gets a job. I mean, any attorney that wants a job can get a job. You just need to find some place that has the need for someone like you, and you can't take it as an assault to your ego if you don't get interviews. I mean, it's just not, it's not what it is. And so when you're looking for a job, one of the most important things you can do is realize your ego has nothing to do with you not getting hired. I mean, you may often go into interviews and do a poor job, so you need to work on how do you improve that and learn from that. You may just be applying to jobs on Indeed or LinkedIn and not getting interviews and thinking there's something wrong with you and wanting to give up. But you have to, really, when you're looking for a position, you have to expose yourself to as much rejection as possible, because That's just how it works. I mean, it's a game of trying to find someone that's interested in hiring you, and it's not an issue of your it shouldn't be an ego thing. It just there doesn't mean there's anything wrong. The firm doesn't have work and isn't hiring you. So in order to grow, in your career, you do need to, when you're looking for jobs, you need to, realize that there's going to be rejection. If you're not getting interviews, you're a product and you're not positioning yourself. You have to learn how to sell yourself to advance. You have to, learn. You may have to apply to hundreds of places and get lots and lots of rejection before anything good happens. And just realizing that it never has anything to do with your ego. If a firm's not going to interview you or hire you, it's always a business decision. They're going to choose what they think is the best product, or they might not even have an opening or any work, so they can't bring you in. And it's never personal. It's just what makes the most sense for the law firm. And I just see so many attorneys that I work with, not willing to expose themselves to the market, and because of that, not get jobs. So if I work with an attorney and that attorney says to me, you can run my job search, apply to places you think are appropriate, apply to all new openings as they become available. And then the attorney doesn't look at people not being interested in them as something to do with their ego. Almost all those attorneys get jobs. So if someone allows me to do their search for them, they will get a job. But in contrast, there's a lot of other attorneys, the majority of them, that want to just apply to a job here and there, or 5 jobs or 10 jobs, and they're not willing to expose themselves to all that rejection, and their career doesn't improve. And people also don't take feedback. So you have to realize, what are you doing wrong? What is wrong with your resume? Can you get feedback on your resume? Can you can you watch webinars like this to learn things? And so you have to learn how to position yourself in a way that's going to give you better feedback. You have to learn how to fix your resume. You have to learn how to apply to enough places, and you have to position yourself as the most logical and valuable person. You have to learn interviewing skills, all these different things that people don't do to improve. And the people that do improve. I mean, there are people that literally have gone into go into almost every interview and get the job, and they weren't like that when they started. When I wasn't like that when I started looking for jobs, I didn't know what I was doing until I decided I was going to look at all my weaknesses and figure out the things I was doing wrong, and then approach interviews in a different way, fix my resume in a different way. And I do have a class, by the way, that teaches all this. It's called Big Law Breakthrough. And if you go to that URL, you can see the class. But there's an opening video that talks about all the things that I've done wrong in my career. I've gotten fired from a clerkship. I had no job. I didn't have the bar because it was a tier clerkship. I hadn't taken it yet. And what I did to fix all these things that I've done wrong when I was interviewing for summer associate jobs, which I barely got one when I was working in firms, what my resume was like, what my interviewing skills were like. So there's a video. You don't have to sign up for the class, but there's a video on that that kind of goes through that and how I was able to figure out everything I was doing wrong, give myself feedback, and learn from all the feedback I had. And instead of like taking that as a this negative feedback. I mean, I took the negative feedback, but I incorporated it into everything I did going forward, and it worked. So it's a good story. If you have the time to watch it, I think there's a video on there that might be in the opening page, like an hour or so. It goes into it, but that can be helpful. And then the class, by the way, goes into all these different things that people do wrong. Which I think it's 50 plus hours of videos that can go into and help you identify all sorts of weaknesses. So I was looking for a toaster oven not too long ago, and I looked at probably 50 of them, and it was similar, to how someone might look at a candidate. I mean, they have different features. A lot of them look the same, and after reviewing tons of them, I came down to the one that I thought had the best qualities for what I was looking for, and just small little things that can make a difference. And And so, if I 50 toaster ovens that I was reviewing, and I chose one, the egos of those toaster ovens weren't going to be hurt. They just weren't what I wanted. And if people are making a product like a toaster oven and they want to make more sales, then they have to make it better, and they have to make it look better than others, and they have to get better reviews, and they have to design a better product that's more appealing to people and has to look a certain way and do have certain features. And so these toaster ovens, if they're not, people aren't buying them, then the toaster oven company that wants to do well is going to need to improve. And then people will buy and make business decisions about ones that are going to offer them the most value. So it's like that with anything. I mean, when you buy a car, when you do anything, like you're choosing the one that best meets your needs, and that has it's exactly the same thing that that law firms are doing. They're choosing the ones that best meet their needs. So it has nothing to do a lot of times with your intelligence or anything else. It's just how you look. And so they're choosing a product. People are choosing a product that offers them the best solution. And you're a product. And in most cases, when anybody whose resume I look at, and I probably do for a resume workshop. Maybe I'll do one next week or the week after. But a lot of times, with attorneys, there's often very, very small adjustments, little things that they could do that would change the outcome. And so I can take resumes, I can take people's job searches, and I will take questions at the end of this webinar, but I can fix things that change the outcome if people are open to criticism. And so it's just so valuable to get criticism, the kind of things that attorneys do. It's most attorneys never talk to someone like me, or they never know what they're doing wrong, and they never try to learn what they're doing wrong. They never watch webinars like this, and because of that, they're often very, very held back. And so people that follow my instructions and learn things from me, and that doesn't have to be just me. It could be someone in your firm giving you feedback about different things, or an employer telling you what you're doing wrong, and why you're not learning kind of from mistakes you made in interviews or whatever. But if you expose yourself to feedback, you can get so many more jobs. I mean, I have resumes of people. I do this all the time. I do probably one person that takes this feedback a week, but I can take someone's resume, and that person may apply to 50 places and not get a single interview. And then I can make different adjustments. And then like the next 50 they apply to, maybe they get 5 interviews or 10 interviews just by fixing their resume. I can take people that have gone into 10 interviews and not gotten a single job, and then meet with them for 30 minutes. And then the next 10 interviews they go in, they get the 5 jobs or 8 jobs, because there's always things that can be fixed if people are willing to expose themselves to criticism. And then again, it's the same thing I was talking to you about with recruiters. Like one person can make 5 placements a year, another can make 20, and the one that makes 20 is making 4 times as much money. But those people typically are always trying to get criticism. They're always trying to learn from their mistakes. They're always trying to improve. And it's in every profession. The highest performers in every profession are able to take feedback. They're constantly willing to learn. They're constantly willing to adapt and keep improving, no matter what the level of success. I had this guy that was kind of interesting. He was in his 80s, and he had this trust and estates firm in Costa Mesa, California, and he wanted to merge it into another firm because he knew he was getting close to absolutely needing to retire, and because he was just very old. And so I was meeting with him about that and how to do that and things. And then he started liking me and wanted me to take over his trust and estates firm, which is probably ill-advised, but he was doing very well. He was making like well over $1 million a year. And what was interesting about this guy is he was just constantly challenging himself. He was taking classes. He was traveling around the country to seminars. He was exercising every day to stay in the best shape. So his mind was very, very good. He was continually like interviewing people to work at his firm. He was reviewing the people that worked there. It was amazing. And but this is someone with his own practice who was constantly challenging himself, and literally in his 80s. And but he had this continual desire to learn, adapt, and continue getting better and better. Even literally, the guy was in his mid 80s, still practicing law, but he was, it was very interesting. He'd been doing that his whole career, and because of that, he had a very, very successful practice. And so, if you, land in a, very good firm, a lot of times attorneys, like right out of law school, will assume that because they went to a good law school and they got into a good firm, that they're going to be successful. And this is something that just doesn't happen a lot of times. Or early in their career, they may only need to apply to a few firms, and so they think that they are going to be successful. And but oftentimes, those same attorneys will start protecting themselves, putting themselves in environments where they don't want to be criticized, or they're not opening themselves up to more opportunity, and it's going to in order to get better and better, and then it limits them for their whole careers. So I'll just tell you something that I thought this is kind of an interesting story that I'll tell you. Earlier in my career, and I think at this point the real estate market was pretty good. I was working with a real estate attorney, an associate, and he wanted to move to Los Angeles, and he had all sorts of reasons that was going to be difficult for him. The first thing is he wasn't admitted to the California bar, which makes it very hard because so many people fail it. It makes it very, very hard for people to get hired if they don't have the California bar in California. He was at a small law firm. He went to, an okay law school, maybe University of Arizona or something, but he was in the middle of his class. He had been for a couple of years. His first job out of law school was in-house, and then he'd been at the law firm he was at for about 6 months. So, I told him all of these weaknesses, and but at the same time, I knew that based on the way the market was, that if I marketed him correctly, that I could get him a position, and so I was able to. I knew I could, and he was able to get a job just based on timing, and and I found a firm that was willing to hire him. And and what happened with him kind of reinforced a lot of things that I think I'm talking about right now. So he'd been making $60,000 a year, I think, and working in Arizona. I got a position that was paying maybe like 130,000, fairly quickly within like a month or so, which was obviously doubling his salary. And he, instead of being grateful, he was upset with me because at the time, the highest paying law firms are maybe paying someone like him maybe 160 or 80,000, and he said that why couldn't I get him a job in a firm like that? That I hadn't tried hard enough with the largest law firms, and he was comparing himself to attorneys that had much stronger credentials. He couldn't. He believed that that he didn't understand like what a big step up this was. And if he did well when the firm I got him a job with, he probably would have an opportunity to get a larger law firm. So I explained to him, I was very direct. I told him he didn't have the qualifications to get into a top law firm yet, but if he got experience, I could help him. I explained to him that it was extremely difficult for a law firm that's in California to get hired by a law firm in California without the California bar, because why would they hire someone without the California bar when they could hire someone with a California bar? I explained to him, that he didn't have a lot of experience. He'd only been in a law firm for 6 months, so that was a risky hire. And then I explained to him that his law school pedigree wasn't anywhere near what most of the people working in the best law firms had. And I gave him very direct feedback about what his situation was and why he was very lucky to get this job, even though he was offended that it wasn't the salary of a top law firm, even though he was making $60,000 a year and double his salary. And so I told him all these things, and then and I hoped that would tell him why this was a good position and what he needed to do to grow and all this sorts of thing. And instead of doing that, he fired me. And basically what he said was, recruiters are there to build people up, not to make them feel badly about themselves. And he didn't want to hear any of these things. His ego couldn't handle it. And with that sort of feedback, he fired me. He didn't take the job, and and this is the sort of mindset that prevents growth. And it was funny because then maybe 6 months later or something, I'm sure he tried going to a lot of other recruiters. Then he came back to me and wanted me to help him again. And I didn't. But this particular guy was choosing comfort, staying, and instead of realizing the things he needed to do, he wasn't willing to improve. And so telling someone their limitations, often people don't want to hear that. They just want to hear things that are positive. And that makes them feel badly about themselves. I do that with attorneys all the time. Like I'll talk to someone, it doesn't matter who they are, and I'll tell them kind of all the problems with their background, what needs to change, and they won't work with me. They'll just find someone that's going to say nice things to them. And again, this guy, then 2 years later, he was still at that small firm, and so obviously hadn't been able to get out of there by applying to firms on his own, by using other recruiters, and so he stayed in this environment and didn't change. And so he may have sabotaged that. I don't know. But in the end, it cost him growth and doing better. So, the attorneys that avoid, this ego bruising are often people with the best pedigrees, like I talked about earlier. And they're often they fear often of being, perfect. What I noticed, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, is a lot of these same attorneys with the best pedigrees will often hesitate to apply to a lot of places because they think it'll signal desperation or weakness. So they only want to kind of run a job search where they're applying to a few places and their limits or opportunities. They think often they know everything there is about getting hired and navigating the job market. And when they're told they're wrong or they could do better, they resist. They did not, or ignore the advice, and they simply often will just ghost me and disappear when choosing growth. I was working with a partner that I'd actually worked for when I was at this law firm, my second law firm, Dewey Valentine. He was a very good attorney, but he was in a position where he lost his job at the firm. He was at my firm. And when he lost his job, he actually came to me to help him, which I was flattered of. But I presented him a list of probably 30 places that potentially would hire him in Los Angeles, different firms, and he took a look at all the firms and he selected just two because he felt like he had a brand and everything he needed to protect. And he applied to those two. He got jobs at both those firms, but he took a job that, in my opinion, was not anywhere near what he was capable of getting. I mean, he could have gotten much better jobs, but he applied to firms where he knew, he would get interviews, which he didn't want to hurt his brand in the market by, applying to too many places. And so, I was kind of taken back by that because he wasn't like that necessarily in his work. But many times people are unwilling to take advice or learn from experts, and it hurts them. And if your people are accused of crimes, they will hire big serious crimes. They will hire people to represent them, like attorneys, and attorneys will tell them the weaknesses in their case and what the problems and things. So the last person that you should be taking advice with would be yourself. And so a lot of times people in their careers will just do what they think is right. They'll only work with their own advice. And so people know their limits. And so trying to, when you're looking for a job and not getting feedback from anyone or watching things like this, you're essentially just using things that you think are right without taking feedback instead of taking the feedback. The best candidates, by the way, are the best attorneys. It's very interesting. If I call a partner in a law firm, say I call them out of the blue, that's not very successful and was an okay partner, like they will usually most of the time not talk to me. More than 50% of the time they'll just say, oh, I gotta go, I'm not interested. Whereas if I call up the most successful attorney in a law firm, like White and Case in Los Angeles, I call the attorney with the most business, that attorney will sit there, and even though that would be that's the best person for me to get, they will ask all sorts of questions about different firms, what's going on, what the demand is in the practice area, like what people are paying at other firms, and all these, what they could make, and so all these sorts of questions. So the best people are always like exposing themselves to feedback. And so, if someone's offering you advice about anything that's to do with your career, whether it's someone you're working with or someone that you know at another firm, you should take as much feedback as you possibly can. That feedback is going to make you better, and it's going to give you a lot of perspective. And so you need to try to surround yourself that are people that are giving you feedback, and will basically tear you down and tell you what's wrong with you and give you room to improve. And so you can always understand, what you need to do to get better and better at what you do. And you don't need to take every piece of advice, but the more you listen, the better off you're going to be. And being open to this is going to separate those who grow stagnate. One of my best friends was a partner for, I don't know, 15 plus years of Point Manual, and he retired when he was in his mid 40s. And he could have, if he chose to, he could have probably practiced, or actually maybe just, mid 40s. He probably could have practiced there for another 15 years, but he got into a situation where I think he was sent to work in the New York office, and the attorneys there were critical of him, like the hours, his work, and he didn't have a large book of business. And so he ended up quitting the law firm, essentially because he was around people. He got to a level where he was around people that weren't making him feel good about himself. They were just constantly criticizing him, and he just felt badly. And so he ended up quitting. And I mean, these are people. That's a guy that was making probably $3 or $4 million a year at that point, but got to a point in his career, he went far enough where he didn't like all that negative feedback, so he quit. And he hasn't been working for, I don't know, 15 years or 13 years or something. So he was unwilling to keep learning. And people that are open to learning and taking criticism are, become much better in your life, your health, your fitness, your relationships, all that sort of stuff. You can be much better if you are constantly exposing yourself to growth. I mean, I know a lot of the very successful attorneys I know, they will have psychologists and things they'll go to every week. I mean, maybe they're not messed up or anything like that. They just go because they want to improve. And then often they'll have very serious, health goals and things. And they're improving in all areas of life. And because of that, they're getting better and better. So you always want to strive to push yourself to get better at everything you should do. I mean, any area of your life, if you challenge yourself you put yourself in difficult situations where you can grow, and you constantly are trying to get better and better, you're going to do better. You should seek out people and environments and experiences that are going to challenge and shape you. With your significant other, I mean, do you have a significant other that is operating at a high level that you can operate at that level too? Are you putting yourself in firms and legal environments where you're going to constantly be challenged? And are you constantly improving and getting better and better? Because one way to look at your career is, I mean, are you better at what you do, and are you making more money, and are you a better attorney, and are you offering more value? Do you have more clients than you had a year ago? Because you should always be improving and getting better and better. When law firms are hiring lateral partners, they're looking not just at how much work the person has, but they're looking at, is there improvement year after year? And so law firms are looking for partners that are constantly improving, meaning more business each year. And are you improving? Are you getting better? Or are you getting worse? Is your health worse than it was the last year? Is your psychology worse than it was the last year? Are your relationships better than they were in the last year? So you should always look back on where you were 6 months ago or a year ago. I mean, I have goals that I look at constantly, and I want to, and I'm getting better, and I did much better this year than I did last year. So you always want to be, and you take feedback, and you learn what you're doing, and you can't protect your ego. You have to learn, like, this is what I'm weak at. These are my problems. Like, I need to move out of this position and I need to be able to grow. And you need to know what's wrong with you. Like what do people say that you should do differently? And you write all that down. Some of it is going to be crap and it's not true, but other times you'll see different consistencies of what people are saying to you. And so then you can then you can work on that. And but most people will avoid discomfort, and that will prevent them from growing. So if you avoid discomfort, that's a problem. You need to be putting yourself in situations where you're constantly being questioned, where there's people around you that are better at what you do than you, and that you're not like the biggest fish in the pond. And so people are going to question what you do and your methods, and every critique that you're getting is an opportunity to improve. And pretty soon, after you take that criticism, you'll be, even better. And then you can put yourself in environments where you're better. There are attorneys that are constantly just improving. They're getting larger and larger clients. They're working on more and more important matters. They're getting larger and larger verdicts. They're hiring more and more people to work for them. They're doing all these things and constantly growing. And that's like what you should be. You should be in a situation like that. And then you should be in a situation where you're learning what's wrong with you. Even if you're a solo practitioner, like the guy I told you about with the trust and estates, you can still expose yourself to people that are better. And you should, every critique you get is an opportunity to get better. And if you get comfortable, then you're stagnant and then you'll decline. And it's not as exciting. And so, if you're not growing, then you're dying. And so just think about it that way. Is everything going downhill, or is everything improving? And if everything's improving and you're getting better, that's where you should be. I mean, your relationships should be better than they were a year ago. Your health should be better than it was a year ago. The quality of work you're doing should be better than it was a year ago. Even if you're in your 60s, your 70s, like the 85-year-old attorney, everything should constantly be getting better, and it's only going to be better if you're able to surround yourself with better people. So one of the things in business, my mentor, Chet Holmes, said, and it's very, very true. He said, whatever's not managed will deteriorate. Meaning, if you're managing something, a company, then everybody has metrics and things they need to do. They're compared against other people. They're constantly being, coached and reviewed in a good company, and that's what happens. If things aren't managed, then a company goes to hell because people are just doing kind of whatever they want, and that doesn't improve anything. And so, businesses that don't manage their people effectively and have goals for the people that work there and are constantly trying to challenge those people and make them accountable, those businesses will eventually collapse. And without accountability and continuous improvement, they just decline. Government jobs, by the way, a lot of people go into government jobs, and some of those government jobs are just like insane. Like there's no accountability. People are just kind of pushing paper. They show up. They're bored with their work. I mean, these are attorneys. Nothing important, nothing significant is happening. And they just kind of live these lives where everything's declining. I remember my mom worked for the state government when I was growing up. And I mean, the people there they just all looked kind of depressed and bored. It was, but they had good jobs. And so they just kept them, but they weren't challenged, and they didn't challenge themselves. I mean, I take courses all the time to kind of to improve my effectiveness. I are constantly trying to look at what I'm doing that's working and what's not working. I'm constantly trying to grow and manage things better. And I'm better this year than I was last year, and the following year I'll be better. But I only do that by exposing myself to all this criticism. And what happens to companies, by the way, most companies go out of business. Usually they'll be the ones that succeed initially are usually companies that that have some sort of product that the market likes or is doing something. But typically what they'll do is they'll just keep doing the same thing over and over again, and then other people will come and innovate, and then that company will not innovate and go out of business. So most companies fail. They become complacent, like doing the same thing. They don't innovate and they go out of business. I mean, if you look at car companies, it's interesting. Like car companies are constantly making better and better cars, and more and more efficient cars are faster or better looking. So they're constantly trying to innovate instead of just doing the same thing over and over again. So, and then people, if they don't innovate, then other people will come along and challenge them and do things better. So the greatest business successes, I can't believe, like I've studied Amazon and like how Jeff Bezos managed Amazon and all the kind of things that were done there. And that company, where Uber or all these very successful companies, I mean, they're just questioning everything. They have all these constantly improving and making things better and faster. And it's just amazing. They're constantly challenging their own ways. So, you have to operate your career like a really good business where you're just questioning and improving everything and putting yourself around with people that are going to do that and getting coaches and watching things like this. Because if you get stagnant, your whole potential and everything that you're capable of doing isn't going to grow. And that may mean getting out of a certain market where there's not a lot of challenge. It may be moving to a larger city. It may be moving to getting into a larger firm. It may be getting working with someone that's very, very good. Sometimes people will take jobs with very successful solo practitioners that have been, incredible incredible at their jobs, and maybe they've been at large firms or whatever. They're very, very good, and they'll work for those people, knowing that that person's going to give them feedback and help them rise to the same level. So it doesn't have to be with a large law firm. It could be with a really good solo practitioner. It could be with a really good small firm. It could be, all these different ways that you can put yourself into, to work with the very, very best people that are going to critique you, is the only way to really grow. And it's extremely important. I mean, if you get into some place where everything's stagnant, nothing's improving, and you don't feel like there's any room to improve, then you're stuck. I know this woman that's extremely successful. She's a trust and estates attorney. No, I'm sorry, immigration attorney. She's one of the most well-known immigration attorneys in the country. Her business generates tens of millions of dollars a year. And what was interesting about her is she got into and she was a summer associate, I think, in her second year, or just worked one summer with a woman that was an immigration attorney. And she saw like all these different types of immigration were coming, and one of them is visas for people with exceptional talent, which is one way to get into the United States. And this woman was like turning down this sophisticated work, and she was just like, this is crazy. Like, why is she only continuing to do this one type of work? And the woman was continuing to do the one type of work that she was comfortable doing it. And so this woman was very motivated. She'd been a professional athlete, all this really interesting stuff in her background, where she was always challenging herself. So she was like, well, I want to, take on more and more sophisticated work. So she figured for her, the only way to do this was literally to start her own practice. And so she has her own practice. The practice is successful. It continues to grow, but she's always, she has coaches. She has coaches, her accountant's coach, her with a coaching business. I mean, she's just surrounding herself with all this feedback and other immigration attorneys. She goes off and becoming better and better and better. And that's what makes her successful. So you can do it if you're a solo practitioner. You can do it all these different ways, but you need to be striving to constantly get better. And if you're not getting better, then that's a problem. And your goal should be to be in legal profession should be to be as absolutely as successful as you possibly can be. And if you don't put yourself in, you just want to coast, you can do that, but coasting is boring. And again, one of the things I would just say is I talked about big law schools and I talked about big law firms, but the majority of people don't come out of those and don't come out of the best law schools and aren't working in the best law firms. So it's probably like 97% of people. But that 97%, I mean, there are, significant percentage of those people that are more successful than the people in the big law firms will ever be. But those people are, I mean, they may be doing, different practice areas and things, but, at the same time, they're very, very successful. But I can tell you, almost without, any hesitation that those people that are, people that are doing very, very well are, always exposing themselves to criticism and challenge. So putting yourself in environments where you're exposing yourself into criticism. Always be trying to learn so you can get better and better at what you do is extremely important. And this particular characteristic, I mean, the reason what I'm talking about is it's just so crucial is because every attorney that is growing and reaching their potential is always doing this. I mean, I have people that pay me, $5,000 a month to talk to them twice a month for 90 minutes. And all I do in those 90 minutes is tell them, what they can do to improve. I set goals and make them accountable. And that for them is worth, multiple times whatever they're paying, 10 times or 20 times because it helps them grow. And I'm not trying to sell my services here because most people who are watching this probably, aren't those sort of people, but I'm telling you that the best people always expose themselves to as much possible feedback as they can. All right, so we'll take a quick break. When I come back, I'll answer questions. This is a live webinar, so I will answer as many questions as people have. You can ask questions about what I've talked about today or anything relevant to your career, and I will give you as much feedback as I possibly can. I think that in terms of these webinars, I think that questions are really probably the most important part of it because you're learning from everyone else here. And a lot of times the things I talk about aren't necessarily things that, people interpret the information a different way. So I'd encourage everyone to stay for questions. I think questions a lot of times are actually better than the webinar itself. I would encourage you to ask as many questions as you have. If you ask a question, I answer it. You want to ask a follow-up question, you can do that too. And I will stay, as long as it takes to answer all the questions. So back in 1 minute, and then when I come back, we'll do questions. Thanks. Right, so we'll do questions. Give me 1 second here. And also, I would say the benefit of your questions too, it's also somewhat altruistic because when you're asking questions, a lot of times you're helping other people because these questions are all obviously recorded, and then we can those questions are used to help other people in the legal profession. So so when you ask questions, you're actually even though you might not realize it, you're helping other people maybe now or now people are here, but also lots of people in the future will help them make better decisions when things related to their career. All right, so we'll go to questions. 1 second. Okay, let me see here. Okay, the first question was amazing the early experience even allowed for as single an opportunity to improve on errors and be given second and third chances for correction. I've worked at 7 firms, small, mid, and large, and every single one had a policy of blacklisting for even one assignment that wasn't perfect. Even for a 1L, a brand new hire, 85 to 98% not good enough. Has anyone how can anyone move forward in a career governed by such framework? Wow. Well, I mean, that's I've never heard anything like that. My first summer I worked for the government. But I would say I had the same thing happen when I was working for a judge. I made a typo, it was a pretty bad one. There was a what's called a writ of habeas corpus when someone's trying to get out of prison. And you typically in the federal clerkship, you get like tons of those to go through every month. And by mistake, I don't know what I was thinking. I actually granted one. I put granted instead of denied. At the end of it, it was hilarious, and the judge caught it. He was extremely upset, and it was something that kind of haunted me the rest of my clerkship. And there's one mistake. So, yeah, people can get blacklisted if you don't do the best job you can on early assignments. And in a law firm or some assignments, you can get blacklisted at certain firms. Not all firms. I have never heard of all of these firms blacklisting people for one mistake, even one else. But yes, they you have to do very good work. I don't think in most cases. I mean, you're bringing up people getting blacklisted at every firm. In most cases, I don't think people get blacklisted because the law firms want to make money from them, so they want them to improve. But at the same time, what happens in most good firms. I was working at my second firm, and when I was working there, I was sitting next door to a second year associate, or no, I'm sorry, first year associate, a very smart guy that had gone to Berkeley, worked very, very hard. I mean, he was there at 9 in the morning and left at 9, 10 every night. And he'd been there about, I don't know, 3 months. And I saw this, the walls were pretty thin. This partner walked in, and he'd been trained at, he'd been a partner before coming to this firm that, I don't know if it was Skadden or, some really serious law firm. And he walked in this guy's office, and for the next like 45 minutes, like he just like tore him down and told him everything that was wrong with him and what he'd done wrong and all these different things. Is very, very hardcore and serious review. And that's how things work at a lot of big firms. Is young associates are just really just taken down and just really criticized very, very extremely. And that's how they improve. And so you, as a young associate, in a lot of places that's what happens. But yeah, so a lot of firms, what'll happen is if they have enough people working there, you have to get work from different partners and different people. And if you don't do good work, then those people won't use you in the future. And then if you get a bad reputation, then other partners won't use you, and then you don't have enough work, you don't have enough hours, so you lose your job. So yeah, so you have to be very, very careful everywhere you go in terms of doing the not making mistakes. Typos are serious. Making formatting errors can be serious. Making bad citations, all this sort of stuff can be serious. But what I like now is I think you can really kind of protect yourself with things like ChatGPT, because it will catch errors, and it can even find case law. You have to double check, but I mean, it can do all these different things, or it can point out errors in contracts and different improvements. So you need to, that's a way of getting your work, criticized and to do well. But yeah, you can get into a lot of trouble in law firms if you make mistakes, and if you don't do the way the work that the way that the firm expects. You have to be very, very careful. But I haven't heard of small, mid, and large law firms blacklisting people for one bad assignment. And usually there's feedback that you get. But yeah, that's something that's true and it's serious. I mean, if you mess things up, you can get in a lot of trouble and not get additional work. But it depends, I guess, on the firm. Let's see here. Not conciliation. As a follow-up, what advice? Oh, by the way, if you ask questions and you're logged into Zoom, I won't show your name. So I'll just cut and paste the question. As a follow-up, what advice can there be for the worst case scenario? Every firm I've ever worked for offered zero feedback, criticism, and opportunity to improve, even when I literally begged for a single sentence of feedback from the silent blackball, i.e. receiving no little or no work. Eventually, I leave the firm only to experience the same cycle firm after firm. My CV scream, this is very common, by the way, what you're describing. My CV now screams job hopper, and with little skills or experience since every firm, after 2 to 3 assignments, converts to so-called poor performers whose work needed many revisions and do a quasi-paralegal with insufficient billables until they quit. 8 months ago, having had enough, I took a role as an insurance adjuster who would love to handle interesting legal in a culture that doesn't blacklist in the first 2 or 3 weeks in the job over needing to redraft 1 or 2 paragraphs or otherwise strong deliverable. Okay, so I've seen a lot of people with your issue. So just so everyone on the webinar understands, this is extremely common. What happens to a lot of early career attorneys, and I'm not saying that this is what's happened to you, is they do get negative feedback. It can be very demoralizing, and then then people stop giving them work because they feel that giving them work is more work than not giving them work many times. So you turn in work, it's not up to speed. There's so many errors in it that people need to correct it, and then they feel like they're the partners or whoever's getting the work feels like if they're actually better off sometimes doing it themselves. So why does that happen? So this happens to a lot of attorneys. So why does that happen? And this is advice for law students, is advice for people that are having problems in jobs. It typically happens because people get assignments and then they just kind of blow through them, and then they're excited to turn in whatever they did without spending a lot of time reviewing it. So this is just kind of a rule I'll tell you that I learned to follow. I learned to follow this rule when I got into this clerkship, where the quality of work expected was it had to be absolutely perfect. The judge I was working for, if he felt like I was making errors, I mean, I could literally feel like I don't pick up on energy, but I mean, this incredible amount of anger and hostility, just from not doing work at the level expected. So what do you do? So this is my advice. Like, how do you fix that? So what I did, and what I think is a good rule, I would initially, when I started doing all this in summers and things, I would do something. I would write it up or whatever the assignment was, and I would be very excited to turn it in, and then I would turn it in without spending a lot of time reviewing it. So what I learned, and this is what made I did well in the firms I went to. I was I think I did very well. I got the best assignments and from the best people. But what I would do is I would do something. So say I was, this is an example. Say I wrote a letter and the letter took me 1 hour to write, then I would probably spend 4 hours going through and fixing it. I remember one time I wrote a letter. It was like a 4 or 5 page letter, and I finished it maybe at like 4 o'clock, and I was still in the office at 11. Fixing it and tightening it up. So typically you would do an assignment, whatever your first draft is, and then you spend 4 times as much time fixing it than you did doing it. So that's kind of the rule that I adopted that I thought was very effective. So if you want to do stuff at a high level, you do something. If it takes you 1 hour, then you should be spending 4 hours making sure it's perfect. Now, there are tools, again, like ChatGPT and Grammarly and all these things that I didn't have back then that can probably make you more efficient, but that's how I would do work. So would just learn the rule of fours. The rule of fours means you go through and you spend 4 times as much time. So why and I'll just talk to everyone a little bit. Most people on this call are going to understand this, but a lot of people won't. If you're a law student, I don't know what or you're early associate, you've been having problems, or you're even a partner that's lost jobs and things. So why does why is it so important to turn in work that's very, very good quality and work looks very, very good and where there's no errors and where it's perfect? The reason is because in most, if you're doing work for a client, and if that client is a company, the company is paying a lot of money, and whoever's reviewing it, if it has to be absolutely perfect, because if it's not, then people will assume that the underlying logic in your legal conclusions and things aren't good. So if you have typos in it, then first of all, it just makes the company look horrible if that's what their attorneys are doing. But if there's mistakes in it, or and things that don't look quite right, then the assumption is going to be that the underlying work isn't that good. A lot of times, people out of academic environments will write these long types of things that aren't good. The academics, I mean, there's all sorts of things, but you need to, if your work needs to be as good a quality as you possibly can be. Now, there are practice areas where that's not as expected, which could be personal injury, insurance defense, a lot of consumer-facing practice areas. But in most cases, like lawyers are expected to have very well-reasoned things and without a lot of errors or mistakes. And if there are those errors or mistakes, then that's bad for the client. So not everybody has that mindset. And if you don't, there's nothing wrong with not practicing law or doing something else, because that's the job. I mean, the job is to be essentially whatever you're doing, you have to be very retentive and obsessed over details. And if you're not, then then you either practice in a firm that doesn't expect that, which will pay lower, or you do something else. And so, I don't know, people, if you're not getting feedback, that might mean there's problems with your work that are so serious that it's not even worth their time. But you should, if it's, whatever you're doing, whether it's your writing or whatever, if you want to practice in a law firm or a legal environment, you should try to make it as good as it possibly can be. And if it's not, then and you have problems doing that, then there's nothing wrong with not practicing law. There's plenty of people, plenty of jobs you can do where you can actually do better financially than most lawyers. So I'm not practicing law. And if you're anybody that's motivated enough to go to law school and take the bar and pass it, I mean, those abilities alone will make you incredibly successful in most professions compared to the average person doing them than anyone. So lawyers can be successful and not practicing law. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you don't have the natural skills, or you're not doing work a certain way, then there's nothing, it's nothing that wrong with that. And it's just it's not your skill set, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, people have different skills and natural abilities. The other thing I would just say is that anybody that's experiencing all these kinds kind of issues in your career, I would say at some point, I don't know how long you tried it, but at some point, you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why would I be in a profession where I'm not doing well? Because most people can go into something and do very well. I mean, I've seen attorneys open up yoga studios and then chains of yoga studios, restaurants, become trade crypto. I mean, all these different jobs you can do, sell insurance and become multimillionaires very quickly. There's so many different things that you can do. And so why would you expose yourself to a profession where you don't have these natural skills, and we're continually getting negative feedback and it's just not working? I just don't understand the benefit of that, because most people, by the way, and this is for everyone on this call, most people have things that they're interested in. There are things that interest you that you get excited about. It could be, I don't know, reading a hobby or reading a certain type of book or doing something. And then whatever you're most interested in, you're going to do well at, because you're going to like it and you're going to like the feedback, and you're going to be, it's going to be fun for you. I mean, work should be fun. If work's not fun, then your life's not fun, because you're spending most of your time at work. And if you're not good at something, that limits you too. So why would you continue doing something where you don't like and you're not good at it? And the number one characteristic of attorneys, beyond having to be extremely detail-oriented and so forth, the number one character, or one of the most important characteristics of attorneys is, you have to want to uh, do the best you can for a client. You have to be very motivated by helping a client get the best result. That has to make you excited. And if you're not excited by helping a client get the best result, then you might want to be doing something else, because some people are more motivated by getting the best result for themselves doing something or whatever. They're more, and that's not what they think, that's not what they aspire to. So no one should be in the legal profession or being an attorney if it's not what you like. I mean, it's great to get a law degree. When I went to law school, my the grandmother said to me, I mean, my family's been in this country for, anyway, probably the start of it. And she's like, my father and his father and his father, like they all went to law school, and they all did other things. My dad was a banker. His dad was a politician. I mean, you don't need to be you don't need to be an attorney like with your law degree. Like I remember, I think I told this. I had lunch, like, I don't know, several months ago with a trust and estates attorney, and he'd been was he a trust and estates? I don't remember exactly the facts there, but he'd been a tenured professor at Syracuse Law School, and he was saying that Joe Biden was the absolute last in his class, and he became president. And so there's all these different things you can do. I mean, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, all these people went to law school, but they didn't have the interest or maybe even the skills to become attorneys. They did other things. You can always do other things, and there's nothing wrong if you don't have this in the ability to be an attorney. How can our firm identify attorneys who are resistant to feedback, and what hiring signals reveal this hidden weakness early? So a lot of times people that go into interviews and they're overly confident, that can be an issue where they're resistant to feedback. So everybody should have be asked in interviews, like what they can do to if they can improve. Many times when you see people that have been jumping around to too many firms, it's often a sign that they don't like the feedback, or they're getting negative feedback. One of the things I notice a lot is people that jump firms, typically what'll happen is they'll get into a firm, and then they'll start getting a lot of negative. They'll come in very, very enthusiastic about the job, then they'll start getting negative feedback, and then they start looking for a job. So if you see people that are moving around a lot, that's a sign that they're probably resistant to feedback. And then when you hire people, often, how do people take the feedback? Do they work harder and apply themselves, or do they withdraw and get depressed and whatever? So there's different types of people that take feedback, and the people that are typically the highest quality, that have the most employment stability. So employment stability is usually a sign that someone's been getting good feedback. I like to see, when I look at candidates, like the best hires are always, for law firms, are always the people that have been at their last firm for several years. I mean, they're not there for a year, they're there for 3 years or 4 years. And that shows that, they're probably going to be stable and they're doing good work, because people don't stick around unless they're improving. And then if they're at the best firms, the highest quality firms, then they're probably even better at getting feedback. Or if they move from, if they have a history of moving to better firms. So someone starts out at a middle market firm and then moves to even bigger middle market firm in a larger city, and then that person could be a very good hire because they're improving and exposing themselves to that sort of stuff. So the things that I look for, that I think are the most important for law firms to identify people that are going to do the best, are typically the person was a summer associate in a good law firm and they got an offer. If the person went to their next firm and they are the first firm and they were there for at least 2 or 3 years, that shows that they were able to grow with feedback. What happens usually with this is for everyone to kind of understand in this webinar. What typically happens with the way attorneys are reviewed is, when you go to a law firm as a junior associate, where you're like in your first 1 or 2 years, the first 1 or 2 years, typically attorneys will get most associates will get Unless the law firm is extremely busy and doesn't want people to leave, they'll get pretty harsh reviews because they're making a lot of mistakes, and the law firm wants to make them kind of rise to a level of having a lot more competence and being much better at their jobs, and so the attorney will get aggressively criticized. And then when you get to sort of a little over 2 years until you're about a 6th or 7th year attorney, the attorneys that are still there are doing good work. They're profitable. They don't require a lot of supervision. And so you'll actually get very good feedback. So you get this incredible feedback when you're like a 3rd year to like a 6th or 7th year. Now it's not going to be perfect, but it will be much better than you got as a junior associate. And then people get senior, and then this oftentimes the feedback starts getting negative again. So people that are getting the best feedback are typically people that have been summer associates and then gotten offers. That's one sign. And then when they take their first jobs, they're usually people that, and so the best law firms, by the way, if you're a summer associate, you don't get an offer, that shows probably that there was something wrong with your work. And so that will hurt you. And then if you just grabbing something here. And then if that person, so if you're hiring someone, in law school and the person's a summer associate, that's very important. And then the next thing is then at their first job, like how long were they there? That's another sign. So if I was a law firm, I wouldn't hire anybody that is a lateral that hadn't been there more than 2 years at their firm. And then if they go to a next firm after 2 years, how long were they there? Or did they improve? Did they go to an even better firm and stay there a long time? So those are the attorneys that tend to be most open to feedback. But a lot of times you can tell people that are probably interested in feedback, they will take all sorts of courses, and they will they will write papers, and they will their resume will be they'll have a lot of activities and things on them related to their practice here. So that's something I think that is also a good sign as well. Okay, what interview approaches help our firm uncover whether a candidate is self-aware about their weaknesses or unknowingly driven by ego? Let me see if I can pull something up there. Just hold on a second. I'm looking for a document that will help most with that. Oh, geez. Sorry. I'm trying to pull up a document. This document will hopefully help people. This is for firms. Just give me 1 second. Jeez. I may not be able to find this. If I can't, then I won't. This will help if I'm able to find this for everyone. Just give me 1 second. Okay. I think I got it. Oops, sorry. I'm looking for a document, which is why this is taking a little time. I think I found it. Okay. 1 second. And this will help everyone that's on this call right now. What I'm going to cover, just to show you real briefly. And this is about how law firms can screen people and sort of what's most important to understand if the candidate you're talking to is motivated by the right things. So, it's a little bigger. So this is kind of what I go over with attorneys that I'm preparing for law firm interviews. It's also, and I'll try to make sure everyone sent a copy of this. This is sort of an internal document that we use and or that I use when preparing my candidates for interviews. And this, when I do this with them, the majority of them do get jobs. And when law firms follow this, they're doing the right thing. So when someone is when you're looking to see whether or not the person is kind of self-aware of their ego and that sort of thing. But what I usually try to look for, what law firms should look for, is whether or not the person looks manageable. So manageable means that person will kind of do what the law firm wants, and they'll follow instructions. They'll be willing to work the hours the firm expects. They'll be willing to work in the office that the firm expects. They'll be able to work on multiple different types of matters and not expect certain types of matters. There'll be people that look like team players, and basically people that are there's a analogy that I make, and I think this is the most important thing, is most people that law firms are hiring are soldiers. And so a soldier is basically someone that will do whatever you want. In the case of a soldier in war, they'll charge into some place where people are firing at them and they're likely to die. I mean, that's what a soldier does. And so law firms need to look for a soldier. Soldiers are people that want to do work the way that people want. They're committed, and they look like they're manageable. So you typically can pick up people, and people that are manageable are typically will improve. People that are not manageable won't. So the way you find out if someone's manageable often is you ask them why they're leaving their current position. And so they'll say things like, oh, I don't like the clients, or they'll say, I don't like having to have all this face time in the office. I don't like being given all this different types of work. I don't, they'll say all these different things that will show that they're not manageable. So people that are not manageable typically won't take feedback. So if you're in a law firm and you have all of these personal opinions about the way the law firm should be run, that people are doing work the way you don't like, and that the partners are bad, things like that, those are people that are not manageable. And so manageable means you're likely to be able to take feedback. And if someone's likely to take feedback, then they're a much better attorney than someone that's not manageable. So are you manageable? And this is you ask questions when you're interviewing the person, and anytime the person shows any reluctance to do things the way you want, that they think they know better, or there's any type of hesitation, or they're giving reasons for leaving their firm that show they're not manageable, those are the people that are least likely to take feedback and not do the best. So one of the things too, I think is very important for everyone on this call. It's one of the most important things that you need to understand when you're interviewing with firms, or when you're working for anybody that's giving you work. So anybody that's giving you work or that you're interviewing with, assuming that they're going to be giving you work, is a client. So you have to treat everybody that's interviewing you, or anybody that you're ever talking to, as a client. And so what does that mean to talk to them as a client? That means that you act like you're excited to work for them, like you can do the work, like you're going to be committed. You're going to give them exactly what they want. You're going to do everything you can to hold on to the client. You're going to want to get more work from the client. You're going to make the client feel good about themselves and flatter them, because that's what partners have to do in order to bring in work in any firm. And no firm would exist without partners bringing in people that are clients. And if you treat the people that are giving you work like clients, then they will give you more work. If you make them like you, they'll give you more work. If you improve and do what they ask of you to do, they'll give you more work. And so your goal is always to have clients as an attorney. So it doesn't matter. I mean, if you want to work into your 60s or 70s, you're always going to need to have clients. And the client will be the employer, or it will be outside clients that are hiring you. So everybody always as an attorney has clients. And so if you have clients, you do what they want, you treat them like clients. And so when you go into interviews, you should be dressed up, you should be on your best behavior, you should act like you really want to do the work, that you'd be very happy to do this work and it's important to you, and you'll eat, breathe, and sleep it. You act like someone's a client. And then when you get into a firm, you act like the people are your client, and you treat the partners with respect and with deference, and you do things the way they want them to do, and you take feedback and you're very humble about it. And those are the best attorneys. The best attorneys have clients. And so you will always, a client essentially means work. So you always want to have work as an attorney. Once you run out of work, your career is over. Like, so people will lose their jobs and they won't have any work. And it's not that it's over, but it's that they lost all their clients. If they lose a job in a law firm, you've lost all your clients. If you are a partner and you lose all your clients, you're dead in the water. So you always have to have clients. That's the whole thing. You need to, if you want to have a long-term career in a law firm, you need to think about always having clients. And so if a law firm's interviewing people, they should hire the person that acts like that firm's going to be like a client. They ask that firm, they ask the firm, what do they need? What's important to them? What is it that I can do for you to make your life easier? How can I help you? Like all these sorts of things. And this is extremely important. And those are the people that are going to do well. But when you go into an interview, like this is something, by the way, when I have people do this, their odds of getting the position go up by 5 times at least. So most people go into interviews, and this is important for law firms to understand too. And again, I hope if you take this advice, if you got anything out of everything that I've talked about today, anything, like just sticking around for this one answer could change the entire direction of your job search and change the entire direction of your career. People do this and they're amazed by how much more successful it makes them in turning interviews into jobs. So most people go into interviews and they ask questions like about if they can work remotely. They ask questions about compensation. They ask questions about hours. They ask questions about, some ask about health insurance. I mean, they ask all these questions, and these questions aren't really what you're supposed to ask. So the most important question you can ask, and no one asks this, but the most important question you can ask is what I just talked to you about a second ago. Like, what could I do? What is it I can do for you, to make your job a lot easier? Like, how can I, what is it if I, what can I do to be, to really excel in this position and make your life easier? What is it you need? If I were to come in here, like over the next, and I were to start, what would you really, like, what would really help you if I could do it over the first 60 days? Like what should I aspire to? Things like that. People don't ask questions about what they can do for the people that they're interviewing with. They ask questions about themselves. If you ask questions about yourself, about your health insurance or whatever, that's all ego-based. And so you have to ask questions about what you can do to help other people. You have to come in and act like a soldier. Soldiers do whatever people tell them to. They're not going to give orders. They're not going to, if somebody wants them to do something, I mean, you have to act like a soldier, but you have to ask people like what you can do for them. How can they help you? And you should be asking that when you get into a firm, like, how else can I help you? Is there anything else I can do? Like, would you like me to do this? I mean, just asking people to help, because people want to feel supported. And same thing with partners. Partners want to have people that are helping them and making their job easier and making them look better. Like if you do really good work for a partner, partners will take credit for your work. They do it all the time. I had one case where I helped this. We had a client. It was launched a satellite, and something had gone wrong with a satellite, so that people spent $100 million on launching the satellite, and it didn't work. And I don't know what it was, but this partner told me to think about it the whole weekend, just sit around thinking about it. and bill 10 hours a day thinking about it. I mean, literally just thinking about it. And so I thought about it, and I reviewed these contracts and things, and I came up with this incredible solution. I don't know how I did it. That that basically saved the company that was on the hook for $100 million. That made so they didn't have to pay it. So something putting the blame on someone else was, I don't remember what it was. And I went and told the partner about the solution, and then he went and sent out an email to the entire firm about how he'd come up with this brilliant solution and save the client $100 million. And took credit for it. I was on the email. I couldn't believe it. And but that's what people do. I mean, you have to make other people look good, and you have to let them take credit for your ideas, and that's not ego. So that's what the best people do. Like if you hire people without an ego, they're going to ask what they can do to help you. It's not going to be about them. It's not going to be about what the job can do for them. It's about what they can do for the job. I'll tell one other quick story just because I find this information in these stories very interesting, just because it shows you kind of what's possible. I had a woman years ago. She was at Skadden in New York, and she was making a lot of money, 600,000 or $500,000 a year or something, and doing extremely well. And her husband got a job being head of a hospital or some sort of hospital system, which was his dream job. He was a doctor in like Martinsburg, West Virginia or something. And she's like, we're moving, and this is like what he's been looking for his whole career, and I'll just take my career to Martinsburg, West Virginia. And so she went into these interviews, and I got her like, it was at least maybe 20 firms in Martinsburg, West Virginia, small firms. I mean, I got her a lot of interviews, like maybe like 10 or something. And she had a real edge to her. And so she went into each of these interviews and knowing, beforehand that, each of these interviews, I mean, these firms would pay her like, 60,000 or 80,000 a year or something, 85,000. And she went into these interviews and she just like blew everyone away. It's just complete enthusiasm. I'll do whatever you need. I'm gonna, this is exactly what I want. Like I'll do what, I'll be an incredible associate for you. And got all these jobs. And, because, she didn't she wasn't like, oh, this is beneath me. I don't want to take this jobs because, she was like, I'll just get the best job I can. When I get there, I'll excel, become a partner, be the best attorney in the firm. And that's how she did everything. And I think with the firm she did get enough, some of the firms she was able to get a higher salary. I don't know what it was, but more than 80,000. But at the same time, she just went in and just didn't care. She just like her ego wasn't involved. She did every single job she could, and she treated each. She could have been interviewing to be like Secretary of State. I mean, she took every interview extremely seriously and did the best she could. Her ego wasn't involved. And then around the same time, I had another woman that was in New York City, and the same thing, same sort of thing. Like her husband was moving to, I think, Rochester, New York, and I got her maybe 3 jobs there in Rochester with good firms. I mean, there's some really good firms there, like Carter C. Krauss and some others, just exceptional law firms, and but they're not, whatever. And so she was at like a major firm in New York. I don't remember, Old Melvin Myers or something. And then she got these offers, and then she wasn't gonna, and then she didn't take any of them, and she decided she was gonna stay home. I was like, why aren't you taking them? And she's like, well, because I'm just embarrassed. It's not gonna look good on my resume or to the the people that I worked with. So I'd rather just have the last job on my resume be this with Old Melvin Myers. And so that was her example of her ego. So but anyway, this is a good question. I like it. I spent a lot of time on it just because I think it's extremely important, because so many people make that mistake. But the attorneys that do the best, the way you can tell that their ego is not involved is when they, act like they want to work for you and help you, and they treat you like a client. And very few attorneys realize this distinction. If you have your mindset, regardless of who you are, regardless of what level you're at, that anyone that's giving you work, doesn't matter, is your client, and clients are treated a certain way. They're given respect. You tell them, I'll do whatever you need. You're doing the best work you can for them. You're trying to get more work from them. And that's what partners do. They do the best work they can. They try to get more work. They anticipate needs. They do all these things. They flatter them. They're nice to them. They take them out to dinner. I mean, you can't do that with people that you work for, but they do whatever they can. They're solicitous. They make that person feel good about themselves. They make them look good. All these sorts of things. And that's what you need to do. And very few people do that. And because they don't treat the people that are giving them work like clients, then they don't succeed. Okay, let's see next question. What should I do if I've been coasting in my legal career and I'm afraid it's starting to show? So yeah, people can coast. People can coast their entire career. You can go into government jobs and in-house jobs and things, and you can coast. And sometimes people aspire to coast, and coasting is not a good thing. It's interesting. They'll just talk a little bit about in-house jobs to start. So I know people that have, some people as business groups and things, very successful companies. And I knew one guy, for example, he was running a company that was franchising. So they were expanding all over the country. They were using a franchise attorney, like one of the best in the country at a firm in Los Angeles. And then this guy decided instead of paying this firm all this money, he was going to hire one of their associates and have that associate do all of do most of this franchising work, so they didn't have to pay this partner $1,000 an hour or whatever he was paying. So that's what he did, and then he hired this associate. And then what the associate did is, so the associate started off doing a lot of the franchising work, but then the associate would come and say, who is now their in-house counsel, hey, this is complex. We shouldn't do this yourself. You should refer it out to the people I worked with or someone else. And so pretty soon he realized that he was paying her, but she was actually giving a lot of the work to other people to do and coasting. So coming into work at 9, leaving at 5, and so forth. And so this is what happens when a lot of people go in-house. So in-house companies will hire them initially to do work, and then those people will realize that they can give the work to other people and coast. And that's one reason why I'm not saying that's how with every in-house job, but it's the way with a lot of in-house jobs. And so law firms and other in-house companies are often hesitant to hire people that are coming from in-house, not always, but a lot of times because of that. So people put themselves in situations where they coast. And so if you're coasting, then you're not improving. And so if it's showing, like, you always need to set higher and higher goals, because if you don't, then you're just going to be limited to being where you're at. And the thing that I like to the distinction that's important to make is between the distinction between an employee and a business owner. So and this is a big problem that people don't understand. And this, again, is something that, if you understand this, can change the whole direction of your legal career. And it's something that's a very important distinction. And it's it's probably like the most important distinction in the legal profession in terms of what success looks like and what it doesn't. So most people, they get out of law school and they think of themselves as an employee. I've had situations, at least a couple, like in October, where people were deciding between a job that paid, between two jobs, by taking one job that paid $5,000 a year more than another job. And that was their only distinction. So this is the wrong way to think about your career, by the way. A lot of people will think of themselves as an employee. So an employee follows orders. The employee wants to get a job at the place that pays the most. The employee kind of sometimes resents management. The employee is fixated on their pay, their hours, often the size and prestige of their company, but they're employees. They're just kind of there working for a salary, and that's it. And so people will often do that their entire career. They'll start out at a law firm as an employee. They'll go in-house as an employee. They'll do all these things as an employee. They'll choose law firms based on employees. being an employee. They'll work in law firms for 20, 30, 40 years as an employee, just doing work for others, and they'll always be an employee. Now, that's actually the absolute wrong way to think about your career. Everybody should be thinking about their career as being a business owner. So it used to be, 75 years ago, that, and 200 years plus before that, the people who graduate from law school, they would take the bar, and that gave them essentially a business license. So they would take this business license, and they would go into whatever town they were in, and whatever town they wanted to work in, and they would basically set themselves up as a local attorney there and get business and run a business as an attorney. That's what it used to be like. These large law firms are really just started happening after World War II. Cravath was the first one when companies like IBM and stuff started needing a lot of attorneys, and so the Cravath organized things, and then they would hire attorneys to work there and pay large salaries. And but then those people were expected never to become partners. They were always employees. So you're hired at Cravath or Sullivan Cromwell or something these days, and you're hired as an employee. Never, but before that, people had their own business. We graduated from law school, and you basically started your own business. With a license that made it, that other people couldn't compete with. So, but now people graduate from law school, or and they become employees, and they're employees for the rest of their career, and that's all they'll ever be. And if you're an employee, the problem being an employee is people will pay you the least amount they can for the most amount of work. For the most amount of work. They will, you will be a second-class citizen. I'm sorry to say this, wherever you're at. You will be dependent on others. There's for your livelihood. And because of that, you will whatever, livelihood, et cetera, and you will be fired and lose jobs for arbitrary reason, or when work's let down. So it's very difficult to be an employee. And I'll just tell you a few stories about why it's so difficult, and then I'll tell you about being a business owner and why that's such a better way to think about your career. So early in my legal career, or legal recruiting career, like literally when I was in my first year of recruiting, I started getting these inquiries from people that were partners in large law firms, like national law firms in Los Angeles. And having been an associate in a large law firm, I was very impressed that I was working with these partners in these large law firms. Well, I couldn't believe it. There were people, and I mean, this is true, and it's there were people that were called partners in major law firms, like major national law firms, that were making, I mean, this will blow your mind, making less money than first-year associates, and they were getting paid that amount because the law firm could pay them. They knew that that person, because they didn't have any business, couldn't get a job somewhere else, and because of that, they would pay them that amount of money. And I saw this. I don't know. I remember it was summer, and I started recruiting like in January. I saw this with a couple of different partners. I was amazed. I mean, several actually. I saw it with like 3 or 4, and they'd come in to talk to me in my office, and they'd be like, "Well, I don't have any business, but I'm a really good mentor to associates." And but they didn't have any work, and they were like making these like very low amounts of money, and they were very nervous and scared, and they're dependent on the firm, and the firm, they're worried about losing their jobs, or some like we're losing their jobs, and these were employees. And they're not real partners. I thought that was really freaking scary. I just like, wow, like this is what happens, and it is what happens. I recently was working with an attorney at a big law firm in New York City, and he was a litigation attorney. He'd been at the same firm for like 12 years, and he didn't have any business, and he was in litigation, and he got a job, and I got him a job, and the position I got him, he'd been looking for a job for over a year, and hadn't got anything, and because it's very difficult when you go to senior litigator market like New York City, and the job he got paid like $150,000 a year, and he jumped at it because it was the only thing he could get. He was losing his job. So that's another issue of like someone that's an employee. People that are employees, they're scared. They jump around sometimes, they get other jobs, but it's just really disappointing. I mean, I talk to people all the time who, tried to be employees in law firms, large ones, for their whole careers, and they lose jobs and they don't have anything else, and then they get divorced and they aren't able to support their families or whatever, and they started off, they're just employees, and so you have two choices. You can run your career as an employee, which is like really scary. I mean, it's terrifying. I mean, the people that I see that have done that and chosen that path, some of them, by the way, can become very successful as employees if they attach themselves to a very powerful partner who has a lot of work, but they're still an employee. If they screw up, they can lose their job. So people that are employees, like, it can be just terrifying. It's a terrifying existence. When I was at Emmanuel, they had so much work that the firm initially would make all these partners without work, but because they had so much work to do. But as the firm grew, then and then more professional management came in, all those people that were made partners without work were either significantly had their titles or compensation down, or they lost their jobs because they were just employees. So everybody, if you're ever in a situation where you're just an employee, your whole career is at risk. So you have a choice. So law firms exist to support attorneys with business. That's all they are. So if you're an attorney and you have a lot of business, or you have business, that law firm is essentially a home for you. So what that law firm does is the law firm provides associates, they provide secretaries, they provide office space, they provide libraries, and they provide legal research and paralegals and word processing departments, and they provide all these things to the partner in the business, and in exchange, that partner gives them a percentage of what they make. Usually, somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 to 50% of that money, or it could be more, but to the house. So, but so that's what a law firm does. A law firm essentially exists. The only point of a law firm is to support attorneys with business. That's what it is. So it's you're an attorney with business, you own a business. So getting business means you own a business. So you own a business, and that's people are like, oh, I want to leave the practice of law to start my own business. The best business you possibly can have usually is as an attorney. Like most attorneys, if they figure it out, can get business. And once you have business, you own your own business. You can take your business to one firm or another. You can set up your own shop. You can leave a law firm and start your own business. But the goal for everybody should be to have your own business. If you have your own business, this is just demoralizing. Confidence. Pins and needles. Whatever. I mean, these people that survive a lot of times as associates in the largest law firms. I mean, it's sad. I mean, they're kind of like the court jester going around. I mean, it's sad. So you want to be someone that owns a business, and that's really that's what it used to be. People came out of law school and they went to work in in their towns and started their own business. When Cravath came along, just so to explain everything to everyone, what they did is they recruited people out of the best schools. They paid these ridiculously high salaries, with the expectation that none of those people would make partner, or very few, and then those people go to work in their clients for their clients. So they basically were training employees. And so your goal needs to be to own your own business. And you can own your own business starting. I mean, I've seen people leave major law firms and become family law attorneys, become whatever, personal injury attorneys, do all these sorts of things and become extremely successful. But unless you own your own business, you're always going to be controlled by others, and you're always going to be scared, and you're always going to never have employment security. When you become a business owner and you get lots and lots of clients and known in the practice area or whatever you do, you have all these different sources of income and things that keep you going. And then suddenly, instead of working for a law firm, the law firm works for you. I mean, partners that don't like the law firm will pick up and go to other law firms, and the law firms will usually try to keep them around because they want that business. So your number one goal should be to be a business owner. And I'm telling you, if you are not a business owner and you try to stay with law firms, you're just not going to like your career anywhere near as much as you would enjoy yourself being a business owner. People that have business are confident. They can always improve. They get much more of a sense of purpose when you're working directly for the client and advising the client. It feels good to have associates doing work for you and paralegals. You are important wherever you work. I mean, so the whole goal, everybody's goal should be to become a business owner and not an employee. And people start businesses doing ridiculous stuff that they don't have experience with. They start like a trust and estate or tax controversy or whatever. But once you own a business, you have a lot of employment stability, and you're happier. And you can choose to be an employee the rest of your career, but it's just going to limit you. When you go work in house, like it's difficult to hold on to jobs like there. Like go in house, you're definitely employed, and you could be let go when the company merges. You could be let go when work slows down. You could be let go because you're a cost center. You could be let go when the company goes out of business, when you're general counsel. So being an employee is like the riskiest freaking job there is. And so you should always strive to be a business owner. If you can't own a business, wherever you're at, you don't see that as the future, then you're in trouble. I know a guy that was at the top of his class at Harvard Law School, and he went to like Gibson Dunn or really good firm, and he realized when he was like 2 years in that the only way for him to ever advance and become a partner would be to bring in like these major corporations, and he would have to sit there and work for 10 years to figure out try to do that, and the odds of him doing that were very, very slim. So he's like, screw it, I'm gonna start a personal injury firm, even though in South of the class, because he realized the only path to success and the law, zoning your own business. And this is a conclusion that a lot of people reach after getting some training. Okay, I'm the only associate in a two attorney personal injury firm. I haven't yet discussed getting a percentage of the fees for the cases that I bring in. How do you suggest that I broach that discussion with my boss, and what advice do you have for what I should say? So you should bring up that you would like a percentage of the cases you bring in. You should ask for that if he's willing to do that. Most personal injury firms, I was talking to one just yesterday, will do that. They'll give people, even the associates that work that, a percentage of the cases they bring in. Some firms, it's very interesting. I mean, some firms will pay 25% of the recoveries. Others will pay 5%, but it's pretty standard in all personal injury firms for anyone that brings in the work to get a percentage. And if they don't do that, then there's firms that will. And if you have training in a two attorney personal injury firm, and you've been doing it for like a year or two, there are plenty, meaning wherever market you're in. I mean, if you're in Los Angeles, there's thousands of them. There's plenty of other personal injury attorney firms you can work for that will give you a percentage. And a lot of personal injury firms, by the way, will give you a percentage for the cases they give you that they bring in. So that's fairly standard in any personal injury firm to get a cut of that. Sometimes smaller personal injury firms with two people, he may not be set up to do that. Who knows, or she, But yeah, I would say, can I get a percentage of the cases I bring in? And he might say, oh, I'll think about it and come back with some number. And if you're bringing in a lot of cases into your firm and you have that ability, then and he's not compensating, you should go somewhere else. I mean, there's plenty of anybody can get hired, especially if you're with a personal injury firm. There's almost whatever market you're in. Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I mean, there's plenty of people that do that work. So I would, personal injury is a very entrepreneurial practice here. I love it, but people can do very well doing it. But my advice would be to try to get a percentage. If you're not happy with it, you can get plenty of jobs. Okay, should an attorney respond at the moment of time receiving feedback, whether negative or indifferent? Should I write notes or just listen? Yeah, you should write notes. You can write notes, you can maybe record it. But when you do receive feedback, say thank you, and then take that feedback very, very seriously, because many times when people give you feedback, they're not going to give it to you again. If you keep making the same mistake, it's just not in their, they're just not going to continue giving feedback. The moment you stop receiving feedback, you're generally dead in the water. So that happens a lot to people in all firms. Like they'll get some negative feedback and they'll get it a couple of times, and then people will just stop giving them work, or they'll give them like busy work, like things to do that don't require a lot of thought. So yeah, so you get feedback, you need to do whatever you can to improve it. If someone says you need to be more careful in your way, you need to work harder. If someone says whatever, I mean, your hours are low, you need to build more hours, whatever the feedback is, you need to take it very, very seriously. And a lot of times most people, by the way, won't get feedback. The only feedback you'll get is if, the person becomes a repeat customer. That means they liked your work and will give you more work. So you need to have repeat customers. So anybody you're getting work from in a law firm, again, is a client. And so you treat them like a client, you do good work, you make them look good, then they will give you repeat work. If you don't do good work for the person, and you don't, then they're not going to give you repeat work. So getting repeat work is about the quality of your work, but it's also about how you make the person feel. So clients hire attorneys that make them feel good, that are flatter them or they're comfortable with. So you don't, when you get work from a client, you try to make that person feel good as well. You bond with them, you try to make them like you anticipate their needs, you do all these things, and then you get repeat work, and then that's good. Once you start getting repeat work from people, then people will tell other people this person's good, or they'll not want other people to give you work, or they'll defend you, and all these sorts of things. So you need to get, repeat work. And I'm sorry, I mean, yeah, you want to, you need to take any type of feedback you get extremely seriously, because most of the time, if you're getting feedback, then it's something that, they think is very serious. So you should take it. Can you please give examples to distinguish between a toxic environment, receiving negative feedback? I remember a review meeting, my boss told me to work on being a consistent producer. Let me just see that. However, all attorneys get extra files daily, the pile up, because the idea is that there is work even on a slow day. I meet the minimum and even over, but I guess it's not enough. Well, first of all, I'll just, for everyone, the webinar, I will bring up this issue of a toxic environment. I don't know if it's related to this question, it probably isn't, but there are environments that are just very, very toxic for whatever reason. Partners may be upset with each other, or the whatever, there could be just a lot of toxicity for whatever reason. And there are environments that are just bad places to work. There's a lot of them. And so if you're in that type of environment and it really is toxic for everyone there, and everyone's upset and feels badly about themselves, and the morale's low, then those are places that are probably not good places to be. Other things can happen too. Like sometimes people will get, if the work slows down in a practice area, rather than the firm saying we're not bringing enough work, they'll start, reviewing people very, very harshly that probably don't deserve it, because they want them to leave. And so sometimes you get feedback like that that isn't necessarily positive and will scare you, and it has nothing often sometimes to do with your performance. It could just be due to the law firms having problems. But so toxic environments are one issue. Environments are generally toxic when there's not enough work or when partners are not getting along and they're kind of siloed and they're not, there's that can be create a toxic environment. But if your boss told you to work on being a consistent producer, I think that he's or she told you to continue, making sure that you're uh, billing enough hours and doing that consistently, and that would be, my fault. I mean, my thought. I don't know. It sounds like you might be in insurance defense or something or personal injury. I don't know what it is. But a consistent producer is essentially telling you to bill more hours. That's what that means. And so law firms, if you're billing the most hours, then you're the most valuable because you're giving the most, they're getting the most in return for what they're paying you. So, any firm you're in, if you're going to have the most employment security, but if you're billing the most hours. So if someone tells you to work and being a consistent producer, they're asking you to bill more hours would be my thought. And if you want to ask a follow-up question, I'd be happy to answer it. If it's it's related to this because I'm not sure that I answered it correctly. Let's see here. Next question. Oh, this is a statement. Um, Thanks for the seminar. I really needed to hear this. I'm a third-year attorney and need to check my ego and earn my stripes as I better myself in my own pump. Yes, that's true. So the more anybody listens to this sort of stuff and becomes better and improves, the more money you'll make. And the people that improve the most and are continually pushing themselves are the ones that get into situations where they're doing extremely well and making, seven figures. I mean, you can make millions of dollars a year in a firm if you are constantly improving and getting better. And even sometimes without a lot of business, become really good subject matter expert. It's just all sorts of things that can happen if you improve yourself. Okay. Next question. Let's see. What is the main difference between taking a counsel position in a firm versus an associate position? If you're a 30-year attorney, should you expect to have counsel instead of partner and associate? So counsel attorneys, I've written an article about this, but in general, what happens is if you're a senior attorney and you have more than 10 years of experience, you typically would not want to be an associate. You would prefer a counsel to any other title. To an associate position. Of counsel basically means in most law firms a couple of things. Of counsel positions are offered to associates often that are very talented and do good work, but aren't billing enough hours to be a partner or aren't bringing in business, but their work is well respected. Making of counsel at a firm like Skadden, for example, is incredibly competitive and it's a very important job. But at the same time, of counsel in most law firms means that you're not held to the same standard as partners in terms of billable hours. Typically, of counsel people do not have business, or if they have business, it's not very significant business. And often, historically, that position was given to partners that were senior in law firms that were kind of near or after retirement age that weren't working as much, and they were just kind of working much less at that point in their career. Today, of counsel is often offered to people that aren't up to snuff to mean partners. Either they don't work hard enough, they're not getting business, and then they kind of give them those positions. So that's how of counsel works. So counsel is it's a signal that you're a good attorney, like you're very accomplished. The law firm wants you there. You're you're beyond an associate, but you're not you're not partner material, or you choose not to be a partner. Maybe that kind of attorney. So that's kind of how of counsel works. And there's a lot of people that are very happy of counsel because the hours aren't going to be as demanding. You're able to do, they give you work that's good work to do, and you know, and you're respected for the quality of work. You're just not of the caliber of you know, a partner, and that makes sense. Or you're not held the same expectations. Okay, let me see. Some of these questions. A lot of the things I've already answered, so there's some overlap. So I'm not going to answer. Um, let's think of a lot of things where there's overlap. Let me see. Because most of these, so if anybody has any more questions, I almost out of questions. I may be out of questions. I'm making sure there's no overlap. But if anybody has any more questions right now, you can ask them. Otherwise, I'm going to try to see if there's anything else here that would be helpful. Okay, well, this is kind of related to everything I for this question. Next question is what mind shifts do I need to make if I suspect my ego is you know, sabotaging my career growth? Well, the main mindset is just to be you know, to realize that everyone gets criticism, and the more criticism you expose yourself to, the better you're going to be. People will avoid work that exposes them criticism. People avoid people that expose them criticism, and people will often feel they'll have a sense of entitlement, like they're entitled to make a certain amount of money. They're entitled to be you know, work on a certain types of matters, be treated in a certain way. So just remembering, I think that one of the biggest things, as I talked about earlier, is the distinction between being a soldier and a general. You have to, soldiers are by nature aren't expected to have any ego. They're expected to do what other people would ask of them. So approaching your career that way, and then you know, learning from feedback and taking things seriously, that would be my answer on this. Okay, let's see. Another question. How do I stay coachable as a senior, as an experienced attorney, without feel like I'm losing authority or control? So anytime you're working for someone else, they're your client. So, you know, if you're a senior attorney with 20 years of experience and you're working for a firm where the person's younger or older than you, that's giving you work, then that person is the one that has the authority. So you have to treat anybody that's giving you work as a you know, as a client. I mean, I've seen attorneys that, I mean, that are worth like, you know, $100 million or more, you know, representing companies and things. And when they go in, I mean, they're very deferential to the company and the people that they're working for. You know, thank you, yes, yes, ma'am, that sort of thing. They're deferential to the judges, you know, and they're, you know, so they're people that, you know, they treat everyone that's, you know, like people that, you know, they're working for as clients. And so you have to treat everyone as a client. You can't feel like you know, you have authority. Anytime someone's giving you work, I mean, they're the client, and you have to do what they want. And I would say that that's like a form of being coachable. So, okay. Okay, I think that's about it. Those are, I mean, I've answered, I mean, there's more questions, but I think I've answered them all. But you know, this webinar, I think probably was very helpful to you, just in terms of realizing the need for feedback, the difference between an employee and a you know, a business owner, why exposing yourself to feedback is so important, not having your ego involved when you're working for other people, you know, taking feedback, learning from that feedback, exposing yourself to environments where you're getting more and more feedback. So the more feedback you get, the better you're going to be. I like the example of the 85-year-old attorney I told you about, who was constantly putting himself in situations where he was able to continually learn and get feedback and be better and better. And this characteristic of constantly wanting feedback is something that you know, separates the people that are most successful in their careers than from those that aren't. So I told you earlier, I think I showed at the beginning of this webinar, like 40 different factors that a lot of law firms will use to evaluate partners and how they're doing and give them feedback. And so the best people are able to get feedback and expose themselves to that, because if we get feedback, you're going to be, once you incorporate that into who you are, you're going to be a different person, 6 months from now or 3 months from now than you were before, and you'll be a better person. Your goal should be to continually get better and better. So thanks for being on this webinar. I may do I'm thinking about maybe doing a resume workshop next week, because those are just so helpful. But if I don't, we'll do something else, and I'll see everyone next week. Yes, thank you.